I guess, whatever. Hello, everyone. This is Darth Sinovia here, and I'm. We're going to address what's going on with the OCTA. Well, I could speak from it from personal experience because I've actually used this service because I live in Orange County, and I did not know that they were going on strike until today, and I had to look it up on my phone, and it's like, wow, I did not know about this.
Right.
And well, what do you guys think? Now, we're not going to talk about this the whole string because I'm the only one that lives in Orange County here. But what do you guys think of what's been going on, like what's in America and around the world?
I mean, I know that I think a few months ago or this year, I can kind of relate to Orange County a bit because I'm kind of under it. but but yeah, they had some bus strikes as well, but some of the strikers either got fired or quit, and now there's actually kind of less bus time routes. They had to reduce it for some stops, so it honestly, a lot of bus drivers, they feel like they're being pushed to the max or underpaid. But to be fair, I don't know any personally in the sense of like, that I could communicate with.
Well, I could tell you, as someone that's been using the bus for over 14 years,
Mm-hmm.
things have been getting worse with these buses. That like it seems like every few years the funding gets lower and lower and lower, and certain
Right.
bus routes are extremely difficult to get through because the buses show up like once an hour, once every other hour.
Mm-hmm.
So it depending on where you live, it could be very difficult to get to your job.
Absolutely. And there's some situations where like I think they'll close like at 6 p.m. certain routes and stuff like that nowadays. And the monthly bus card for an adult is like $72 now where I'm
Jesus.
at in California. It's ridiculous.
And not in, if you're not fortunate to be part of the regional program like I am, they basically give disabled workers like me free
Hmm.
bus passes every month.
I signed up
Wow.
for
I
one,
got
but I need to
rejected.
change my number with the library because when I was robbed at knife point, they took my phone. So I don't even know whether the bus pass people have tried to call me or not. Probably not. Maybe.
But what Noob says is true. It is extremely expensive to get a bus pass.
Hmm.
It's like a disabled pass is actually cheaper if you could prove that you're disabled.
I think
Right.
you
But
get
of
it for
course,
free if you're disabled. Yeah, like I
speaking of
can't believe they
which,
make you pay for the fucking pass. That's stupid.
speaking of which, there's been times depending on the route I had bus drivers not let me on because I had to show proof that I was disabled when I used my bus
Wow.
pass.
What do you mean you got the pass?
Damn.
Like what?
What
What
the
fucking
hell?
that's expecting to
That's
perform.
so fucked up.
I remember
Wow.
being warned about it when my mental health guy got like occupational therapist to come down. He's like, whatever you do, just don't do anything that they ask you to do. And I did like one thing where I sat down on something while they were helping me sort something out, and they just started like they were using every excuse to gaslight me on anything. Like, if you don't if you perform with them, basically, it's not about how you do or anything like that in a situation where you're being assessed. It's about the fact that all it is your word against them so they can just write anything. That's why you don't ever. The only time you are ever meant to perform is during a diagnosis. If someone ever expects you to fucking perform a disability, that's bullshit. That's not
Hmm.
how disability works. And you
Well,
go back away because it's a way of exploiting the way disabled people are already gaslit and feel fucking like narrowed in by on the society in which they live in. So
Right.
yeah,
well, that doesn't happen often. Majority of the time, the bus
happens
drivers
enough of the
don't.
time.
On my job where I live, majority of the bus drivers just don't give a shit. They really don't. They don't bother checking my bus pass most of the time. It only happens like once in a blue moon. But it doesn't change the fact that it does happen.
Right. Yeah, it's extremely fucked up for sure. I had a bus driver. I mean, I only had one bad experience with a specific bus driver that like basically never let anybody use their like even if you have your earphones, he would like scream that turn it down because somehow he could hear it.
Fucking hell. That's like how
Yeah.
bad my hearing is. I can hear 44 kilohertz sounds. Now, the human hearing is supposed to stop at 22 kilohertz.
Right.
It's only faint, but I can hear them. So I can't walk past mosquito detectors without them making me feel like I need to fucking, like, cover my ears because my head's splitting.
Damn.
When most people can't hear a mosquito, the mosquito repellent noise things where they make really high pitched frequencies at a fast pace.
Holy shit!
$150?
What
Wait
the
a minute,
fuck?
those are Canadian dollars. That's deceptive.
That's
It's probably 130. Sorry. I had a moment to dunk on the Canadian economy while I can. Although that's funny coming from Britain right now. What was it like? 20 years ago, you used to get twice the dollar for the British pound. Now it's at the same rate.
Yeah.
48% or something like that inflation, or was it 42? It's somewhere in the 40s.
Up. Japan's like 150 to 1 now or something.
If that to be honest,
That's an improvement for Japan. It used to be in the thousands in World War II. Fuck.
Okay, in order to qualify for a pass, I might as well just bring this up. You have to go through specific things,
right?
And
they won't just offer you when you've gotten your disability diagnosed. You have to go to a specific function and then like send off forms and request them to evaluate it themselves, independent of the people whom have diagnosed you with your disabilities. So,
but here's the thing: if you're part of a program like Regional Center, you're guaranteed to get it.
They'll even help you do the process as well if it's anything like anywhere over here. They'll go through it with you. They'll do the documents with you, and they'll make sure you got it.
Yeah, but there's so much loopholes. There's so many loops you have to get to Regional Center. Unless you get Social Security in some form, you're not going to be able to get into Regional Center. So if you don't,
they rejected me.
But also, I imagine it's like when you're getting your disability money over here, where like you're gonna get rejected 3, 4, maybe 5 times before eventually you get it. You may even have to go to court with some things like this.
One of my friends was not considered retarded enough, which is why he was denied Social Security.
Yeah, that's fucking. Yeah, for those that don't know, the U.S. medical system still actively uses the word retard, and not even just to mean slow. They use it as just a catch-all for people who have any form of mental or cognitive disability.
Yeah.
Mind you, mental health conditions are a form of mental disability. They see people who are like. So like the way that they look at disabilities. Oh yeah, I forgot to say psychological as well. Psychological comes into that. They look at anything that affects the brain. That'll be easier to put it that way because neurological too. Anything that affects the fucking brain, they're gonna call it fucking retarded. And any sort of body-related disabilities that affect the body, like fuck, bad time to have fibromyalgia, because I got that one. I can say that one. That's easy. Diabetes, things like that fuck your body's functionality. They'll see you as retarded too, but it's normally centered around anything that affects the mind. Fortunately, our doctors don't use that lexicon. Still treat us like shit, but they use nicer words when they're doing it. So
Well, I've actually been treated worse. Since then, because 12 years, or not 12 years ago, 11 years ago, they treated me like I was mentally retarded. Like it was because I didn't have the what you would call that. I wasn't as educated as I am now. But today I wouldn't. If I had applied for Social Security, I would not be able to get it because they would consider me not retarded enough.
Yeah, and I half of my life, really half of the times I ever visited the doctor, it was going basically because of the U.S. dollar exchange rate. It's just cheaper to go to Tijuana for dentists and doctors, or else I don't know. I would never be able to afford
Oh,
health
what does this
care.
have to do with the disabled struggle, though? Some people may ask, and what does this have to do with the topic of the video? Well, public transportation, the people that depend on it the most are the disabled.
Disabled
Right.
and lower class workers. But like, what's it? I will say I have gone through that same discrimination myself all throughout my life trying to get help because I purvey bottom tier level of intelligence. I'm fucking not fucking seen for my learning difficulties and not getting much help on that because I can fucking ramble on and I can have hitchpot talks with people. My communicative difficulties are completely overlooked. As what's it? Um, uh, because I purvey intelligence and I like to speak for myself. Going for disability assessments, that shit just gets used straight against me, as if like fucking I didn't try as if I didn't try my education to get anywhere. Like I couldn't physically write anything when I dropped out of education in year 13. No, year 12, because I did year 12 twice. It was my 13th year, but I failed my first year of year 12 and had to do it again because I'm fucking such a fucking great student. I did have my big revelation on fucking acid halfway through my 12th year, I think. Yeah, and or was it the start of? I think it might have been no, yeah, halfway through my my year 12 year or something like that. Or I don't
I
know.
see.
It was like
What
January or February,
I
and
think one thing I'd
fucking
like to
that's a
discuss,
quarter
though,
in.
on the public transportation is just okay. I do support the workers going on strike, but from my experience riding on the bus, they do not wait for people to sit down. Like
Damn.
it is so
Wow.
those who struggle to walk, it's like if you're not fortunate enough to get a seat, you're you know you got to grab onto something, otherwise you can fall.
Because the bus times are ridiculously tightly packed to a point where the only way buses can be slightly late rather than, well, they always end up incredibly late, but the way that they got to try and keep up with the times that they're given is they got to rush and they always still end up late. You know,
I yeah.
back in the day, buses were supposed to wait at bus stops a couple minutes, but now everything's rush, rush, rush. The times are ridiculously closely packed together. And at some point in the day, you'll be at a bus stop and you'll see fucking three buses come near mine sometimes. Two buses,
Right.
three buses, all of the same route because one or two of them are late and they're with the other one. And it's ridiculous. There's been times where I've waited over an hour for a bus that's supposed to hit the intersection every 15 minutes.
Right. Yeah. I would say, I've been lucky since I don't go too much through, well, sometimes, but since I don't live in Orange County, but I've been through there, I haven't had any real experiences with the Orange County public bus system. But I'm south of Orange County in San Diego, somewhere in the county where I won't say, but um I've been very lucky that I've never really had any problem with bus drivers like speeding off fast. Unless the only problem is like getting the stupid dollar in, and then if you got like a wrinkle dollar. But from
Well,
there, I don't know why. Maybe the San Diego bus drivers here are just a little bit better. Um, it could also just be because San Diego is like kind of I mean, it used to be a kind of a big military kind of culture, at least in the downtown. But maybe it's not because of that. But yeah,
I, I will say as well on what Attack the Menace is getting at. Yeah, no, they specifically designed those things to be stressful and disencouraging. Like the amount of fucking psychological science that goes into fucking evaluating how to make those fucking phone waiting things. Like a lot of companies, they have a 45-minute buffer. Social services uses this, and social services. I mean that in plural. I know there's an institution in the UK called social services. I mean plural, as in different social service foundations within society have different variations of this process. And one of the most common tools is interruptive music. It's something that's kind of taken from our evaluations of how horrific music is made and other stuff like that, and on eerie music. So if you hear a music pattern and it ends before a symmetrical beat, especially if you've heard the symmetrical beat a couple of times, rather than like with an eerie horror song where it never hits a symmetrical beat, you're hearing consecutive symmetrical beats and rhythms, so you know the pace of the song. Every human to some degree can automatically resonate with music. People who can pick out specific tonations of beat doesn't make them above anyone else in regards to actually having a mental clock for the speed of music. We all have a mental clock for things. So when your mental clock has gotten into rhythm with the music, it ends before it reaches the end of its rhythmic pattern at a certain point and then restarts again. And that creates really, really high levels of irritation, especially in people whom are neurologically divergent in a way where they are hypersensitive, like autistic people. So it's it's a very great way for just getting anyone away. Anyone's going to get irritated by it, but if you're more hypersensitive, you're going to get even more fucking irritated by it. If you're depressed, you're going to get hella irritated by it because you're already deflated and unwilling. Genuinely, massive psychological evaluations go into how they make those systems.
Yeah, and I would say that some people, the public buses that have to deal with going to schools, some people do go through some bad experience there just because of all like the aristocrat type of kids. And well, you know, but yeah, I don't know if that applies like everywhere, you know, but yeah, it is what it is, unfortunately.
I agree. I mean, Jesus. From experience from calling Social Security, I can tell you that what Stone says is completely accurate.
On the video topic, I will state that it's not surprising that amidst mass rise in gas prices and pretty stagnant wages for transport drivers,
Right.
it's no surprise that strikes are going down. Wouldn't be surprised if this spreads like a wildfire, and it's
Yeah.
kind of necessary that these strikes happen in a way. But the problem is that not only is there a lack of coordinative strikes from other sectors of industry, so a lot of people would be catching the bus, on their normal day, to work. They're having to bike and pedal to work, and it's not like work's off and they can be involved in an active strike themselves. They're going to work and continuing to work on while there's a bus strike going on, and there is massive contradictions that could cause spite between sectors of the working class on this measure, but also as well, like in twofold. So when Japan strikes, Japanese bus drivers will continue to drive the route and let everyone get on the bus for free, which is an effective way of striking, because the whole point of striking is you're stopping the industry from profiting. And they're also stopping them from staffing the bus of anyone else because they're staffing the buses. It's much more effective strike tactic. And secondly, there was active strike coordination, and the bus drivers are striking on this basis. There could be a multitudinal thing where the bus driver strikes are also ensuring that everyone else is getting to their strikes, and there's a multitudinal effort going on. Because realistically, communists in the first world, and this is obviously more on a bigger scale. I'm not telling everyone now, like, okay, quickly drop your fucking screens, go do a national strike, but there needs to be a general strike. Like, there needs to be a halt of industry and infrastructure. And I mean, for what we have that makes the majority of our economy, logistics. That's our prior industry, primary industry, because most of our shit's exported.
I do agree that in Orange County, if they did that, it would, they'd be. I feel like they'd get far more support from the workers if they made it if they struck in that way where they don't pay, are not required to pay. That way, they would show solidarity in the future because they'll never forget that they still were there for them when they needed to get to their job. So that's why I do feel like that would be more effective. But then again, this has been a problem with Orange County even before the war in Ukraine happened. It was going. This has been a problem for years.
Right. Yeah, I would say
I've heard talked about a strike as back in 2018 and 2019. Like this is a problem that's been happening for years. This was going to happen sooner or later, and the Ukraine situation with the rise in gas prices is basically what accelerated this. I wouldn't be surprised if we see more of this happening nationwide with transportation.
Absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree there. The thing is too though, and that's if I use part of San Diego County as an example, they did fire some of the bus drivers that striked. And considering that Orange County, the politicians might be a little bit more reactionary than San Diego, although don't get it wrong, San Diego's already being swamped by it again, by a different version, of course. But yeah, there could be a situation where the politicians want to say, hey, fire those workers, and then they'll just limit the buses and pay one of the other people more. And that's kind of what happened here, to be honest, because they did fire some bus drivers and there's less time and routes.
They're just going to use this as an excuse to further defund the OCTA. They've been defunding it for such a long time now. Like it is 10 years. Let's just say 14 years ago, it was far easier to get around than it is today. Like buses that usually came around like every 15 minutes come around every 30 minutes.
Jeez.
And buses that used to come like every 30 minutes come every hour and a half.
Wow. Yeah, it's a lot for sure.
And not to mention, it takes longer another reason why these buses are always late, because a lot of these of the time, these buses are usually packed. By the way,
right.
you have a bus that's so full that there is no room for to sit. And if a wheelchair gets on there, which to answer Spec TV's earlier question, there's only two, depending on the buses, which most of them are basically only have enough room for two wheelchairs. So people who are in a wheelchair, they basically have to flip a coin, if they're even going to get a ride or not. Because if there's already a slot taken, they're not going to have to wait for another bus.
Right. Yeah, that's true as well. There's some elderly people who need to take the bus as well. I mean, there's some elderly people that you could probably say they're partially disabled, but they don't have that status yet within, this capitalist system. So, or they don't have much family members. But yeah, it will affect those people for sure. And at the same time, I mean, the government, California, we both live here. California is not some fucking paradise that they portray it as. And, it's got a lot of freaking issues for a neoliberal system.
I would argue that Orange County is basically run by literal fascists.
Absolutely. Especially from what I hear about the cops.
It's so fucking conservative in Orange County. I'm not even exaggerating. It's basically a strong Republican stronghold. Mm-hmm. There isn't a single area I've been to that isn't full of Republicans.
Right. And trust me, Dr. Sylvia is telling the truth. I can vouch just even from where I and I think I haven't been in Texas in a while, but from what I hear, it's getting a lot more reactionary, especially Austin and Dallas.
I'm calling it this decade. California is going to turn red.
I think in 2 years, yeah. Or they might recall Newsom for sure.
Because I do not think the Democrats are going to have a stronghold in California. And once the Republicans have a stronghold in California, it's it. That's it.
Look at where Biden's at. You know, where does he go today? He goes to Oceanside. He does like a go to vote rally, and then he goes to Maricosta College. It's just some stupid safe space with like 50 people, and like like more than 2/3 of the state doesn't even vote. Like, it's crazy. Like,
Yeah, most of the people I talk to don't vote because they think it's meaningless.
right. It was like 18-20% for the June primary this year.
What's interesting is those who most likely vote are those who actually already benefit from the system in the first place.
Absolutely.
So
On
those
both
who are
sides. Yeah.
openly Republican in my job or pretend to be an independent, they're the ones that vote.
Yeah.
Everyone else who doesn't vote because they think it's a waste of time, which it is.
Right. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I think we should not talk about voting very much because that's for the next stream. The only reason this stream is happening because this issue with transportation and union busting potentially, like, I don't know how union busting is going to be done, how they're going to intensify it after this, but I think they're going to look for a justification, at least in Orange County, as a way to do it more.
Right.
Union busting is typically these days and has been for a very long time handled by the police, illegally hired infiltrators, and petty bourgeois unions that are typically ran through companies, but not always. There are a lot of external petty bourgeois unions that couple themselves into companies that formalize after they formalize that focus on profiting off of the working classes need to unionize. That's the problem. Unionism is important, but the problem with unions that we have, especially at the moment, is that the petty bourgeoisie are using them and dominating them to control not only the working class
Right.
will in their own movement, but also to profit off of their need to exert their will via struggle.
The
So the
one,
proletariat needs to be
yeah.
functioning within strictly proletarian unions.
The one thing I'll say is that um, I'm pretty sure police unions are one of the worst things in America. I mean, they're like, yeah, they're connected with the military system, really.
Is there really a difference between the police and the military? I just see them as a different branch of them.
Oh, I agree. Right. That's why I said they're connected. You know,
Yeah,
their
police
union
are based off
boss.
of the colonial garrison. The police in the UK literally have the same fucking style helmet as the colonial garrison. It's just
Yeah.
literally blackish blue instead of
Uh, uh,
khaki.
right. And the one thing that has to be told the truth, at least when the context of America right now, is that like half of the so-called fucking left, fucking liberals and all that, they fucking support cops now and the war in Ukraine. Like, this idea that the whole entire like first world America left here is against the cops is nonsense. I'm seeing a lot of reactionaries within the whole, Bernie bro, Tulsi type of crowd and all that Joe Rogan, Peterson, centrist cult. I mean, they're all right wingers, anyways, right? Let's be honest, but that's what they're becoming.
Bruh, like, do you know the name of Rogan's old news team that he used to be a part of in like the early 2000s? Media team thing?
No, I forgot.
Death Squad. But no, Joe Rogan is the voice of reason according to Spotify.
Oh my god.
The voice of reason, the guy that literally advocates for genocide.
He supports racist Governor Greg Abbott in fucking Texas.
This stream is sponsored by Apple Music. Sorry, I made a dunk on Spotify, so I thought I'd commit to the meme. Streaming programs suck. Like people don't know about all the big silicon banks and that. But no, on the pointation of strikes is a thing as well to consider. The workers that are being inconvenienced ain't going to be the people who are going to have the most spite towards these bus drivers striking. It will be the labor aristocracy and petty bourgeoisie. I mean, the labor aristocracy just sees themselves as just the quote-unquote skilled workers, which sure thing, but that doesn't make unskilled workers any lesser. And I mean, like bus driving gets classified as like supposedly unskilled working, but you need a class of large driving. It is a skilled job, so I don't get that meant. But regardless, they're seen as people whom are doing such a quote-unquote unskilled job that the fact that they're even requesting more pay would be seen as disgusting. And like the fact that there's less buses on the road, you'd think the petty bourgeoisie and the labor are starting to be happy considering how much they hate buses anyway. Like genuinely, like fucking the impatience of car drivers when dealing with buses. One of the worst moments to ever get into is when you're at a fucking junction and you're having to wait for ages because no one will let the bus out because buses are quote-unquote slow. They can hit the same road speeds that are the legal speeds as every other vehicle. Drive the legal speed and buses will seem just as quick as you are, mate. Like,
yeah, I mean, they fired some of these bus strikers, so that shows you like how deranged the petty bourgeoisie and the people who control this fucking county are. It really does.
California and Orange County as a whole is basically a haven of the petty bourgeoisie.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I mean,
it's just amazing how the fucking reactionaries that hate California. It's like, this is your fucking state. This is your fucking haven. Yeah. What the fuck are you angry about?
Third way Democrat haven. That's what we got, and it's a super majority.
No, I'm calling it. If it ever becomes a Republican majority, they'll fucking love California. Republicans would love it. Like when it becomes a Republican stronghold, they'll fucking talk about won't shut the hell up how great California is.
My fucking town used to be a very important industrial town and had a very large working class to go with it. And now they've for what 60 years, 70 years, they've been gentrifying this town. 50 something years. It was about 66, 67 the Birmingham overspill started. So they've been gentrifying this town for decades. Projects started to stump a bit in the early 2000s because of the 97 crash, the 02 crash, and then obviously the big old 08 crash. But they're back on full run and trying to fucking gentrify this town up. Whenever they're building new housing estates, it's the council with land they own, which means they could put council properties on them, selling it on 99-year leases to private corporations. Like, I'm going to make a lot of people in New York and Philadelphia who may have had to live under this London housing firm's contracted out to be constructed housing. I'm going to make them fucking go when they hear about the big companies that are used in the UK for building these new housing estates. Red Row, which are very renowned for whenever they build properties for poor and colonized groups to build them like you'd expect Trump to build houses for these groups. Kershite. And so every of these areas, they have, I think it's 15% social housing, 12% go to housing associations. The council gets the rest. And then the rest of the housing are all private, sometimes up to 600 and some £1,000, which before the pound shot itself was around $870,000. It's now about $600,000, but that's a long story. But I say a long story. It happened in a matter of 3 months. But the what's it? the social housing that they construct, whilst made to look acceptable, so the middle class in the area won't get pissy and clad it with flammable fucking cladding. Looking at fucking you conservatives in London. What's it? And Grenfell. and what's it? But they're built cheap as shit. Not even cheap as chips. Cheap as chips would be even better. Cheap as shit. I could crap out a better house.
Oh, I just related to transportation. I'm trying to see what part of this county. Oh, well, I guess I mean, it's not in California, but in Tennessee, they just had to they basically had to renew seat belts in their like district because there was a bad bus crash, really bad bus crash. So that really shows you in America like how this is school buses I'm talking about in Tennessee. I mean that's public school buses technically.
OCTA doesn't have seat belts, but by the way, for those of you who have never used it, I
Same
can tell
Most
you
here.
buses
there is
don't.
no
That's
seat belt.
normal.
I think buses should have seat belts.
I find it more comfortable to not have one of those fucking restriction devices on me. Thank you. There's handles that does me fine.
Well, in Tennessee, these are school buses. They're a little bit more different than the
Well, school
ones.
buses are based off of coach designs, and coaches have high riding seats. So they kind of have to have seat belts, otherwise you are gonna fly off the fucker.
Right. Yeah, this was like a school bus for like the kids that crashed. The yellow ones was pretty deadly.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is those like yellow school buses, regardless,
Right.
because they're coach designs, they have to have them because
Right.
the reason why a normal bus can get away with having those seat belts is because the seats are basically on the ground. You're not very far off the floor when you're in a bus, so you're unless you're at the back seats, your center of gravity is pretty sweet. I mean, I got a shit center of gravity, so I get thrown about anyway. But your center of gravity is all right. With a coach design, there's a big layer of ground where you are fucking before you even get to the seats. That's why there's always steps when you go in. So like they have to have seatbelts because your center of gravity is so high up, you will just fly off your seat.
Right.
Ah, my sausages. I'm frying food.
Yeah, I'm looking at the Orange County stuff, seeing what they say. Oh, so Gavin Newsom, this is related to Orange County. He negotiated or requested a prevention of a bus strike last month, but I guess the bus drivers felt they got screwed over again, and so now that's why it's happening. That's what I'm reading from this article.
Gavin Newsom is such a piece of shit. I fucking cannot stand him. Fucking Christ.
He's a fascist fuck. He's more right wing than Biden or Clinton. He's more right wing than the previous governor, Jerry Brown. He's the nephew of Nancy Pelosi to make it even fucking worse.
Well, that gives me another reason to hate him. I mean, God, Jesus.
Right. Yeah, I just sent you the article on. Well, I guess I could post it in the chat. Forgot about that. All right. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, Gavin Newsom is a piece of crap. I mean, I
But
guess.
according to the reactionaries, he's a communist.
Oh my god. This is what I really hate about this country. These fucking reactionaries, man, they're constantly saying California, and I just like almost cry.
Like none of those
One
people
of the
say
most
that's not the
conservative states in the country, whether it's Lib or fucking Republican, has been forever.
Exactly.
None of these fucking people have fucking who say that live here. Like I can
They
tell you from
It's
experience.
one of the fucking southern states as well, like the Southwest. It's part of that joint community of fucking extreme. Like all of the states are fucking racist, but when you think of like the extremely racist ones, like it's the fucking you go around the East Coast and then all the way down the South, and that's where you get your big problems.
right.
It's like a lying down L.
I mean, you want to know? I mean, you want to know something like semi-esoteric was like the past racism in San Diego. Like, I mean, there's a part of San Diego where after the Americans took it from Mexico and all that, some people were still here, but some people did get deported. But the point is that there's a segregated section in the city outside downtown. But want to know what they call it? Want to know what the Anglos call it? And as well, some of the people, they call it the colonia, as in the colony. But think about it. It's like that's what like the American settlers are calling a neighborhood of Mexican Americans and others. I mean, just think about that type of racism.
I thought Roosevelt solved racism when he made the Bill of Rights.
Or LBJ. The worst part. Oh, and think about California too. This state had Reagan as a fucking governor, and they had Nixon as a senator, and they both have libraries. Nixon's from or he was born in Orange County somewhere, but then he had some stupid ranch elsewhere. And weirdly enough, FDR, like Reagan was an FDR Democrat, and he did sign the decriminalization of, well, basically reproductive rights. Really, he really did, and it was not the Democrats. And the Democrats, they just barely put on the proposition ballot this year for making reproductive rights a constitutional law, because it's only technically a bill law at the moment.
Isn't it ridiculous how every fucking 4 years we're supposed to our rights are at stake? It's like, if we have to vote to protect our rights, do we really have it in the first place?
Right. Oh, and I should remind people, California also passed gun control to suppress the Black Panthers.
Yeah, so for any fucking reactionary that wants to basically say some stupid shit about, the Democrats want to pass gun control. Your fucking boy Ronald Reagan is the reason why gun control is a thing in this fucking shithole of a state. Thank that bastard.
Yeah.
Like your fucking beloved Ronald Reagan. But again, they probably supported it because it was the black proletariat. It was disarming. That's why they supported it.
Right. Yep. And any liberal who's still promoting gun control, fuck them too. I mean, they're just playing into the hands of the fascists. I mean, by trying to disarm us.
Also, Republicans. Ronald Reagan wrote the pro-abortion bill for California, and it was the Democrats that fucking made sure it didn't get into fucking law quick enough.
Right.
There's a fun little tidbit for you. I wonder if there's a game of cat and mouse that goes on between those two parties.
Yeah.
It's funny how the Republicans in some instances are more progressive than the Democrats. But then again, it's like a mixed bag of which one is more reactionary. To be honest, they're as bad as each other, and I don't think any of them are worse than the other.
Reagan was like a more successful reactionary of FDR. People underestimate the fact that he was an FDR Democrat and a Truman Democrat.
Well, people still.
Well, yeah, I mean, FDR was a fiscal conservative. Right. His words in 1932.
Right.
People seem to forget that Ronald Reagan was not a dumb man. He would not be able to get the amount of support he did, or be able to make those speeches that he made, or convey what he was trying to get from supporters if he was dumb. He was not a dumb man.
People trying to point out faults in him and that to make him out to seem dumb as well. Not only is it just a waste of time and kind of over focusing on a single personality, but also it's like the guy eventually had dementia. We know that. So it's kind of hard to then just start going and looking at where he falters to call him a moron, where he forgot things. What do they fucking think Alzheimer's does to you? Like it gets really. I don't like it when disabilities are used to dunk on fucking
Right.
tyrannical people. Their policies are easy enough for us to dunk on. There's no
Right.
need to be like, oh, Joe Biden's demented or anything like that because it's just feckled. But also, there's a quote from Michael Prenti where he very much points out that Reagan is a very intelligent man, not one to be underestimated.
Exactly.
Michael Prenti was specifically pointing out as well that the imbecile act is an act with Reagan.
Right.
He knows exactly
Right.
what he's doing. I think this was in the 80s.
Exactly.
Well, I think he said this
about
in
going
the
to
80s. I
college
forgot.
with him as well.
It is true that, and it just look what's currently going on, like as a result of this.
Right.
What we see in California, in Orange County. Let's use Orange County because I can relate to that because I live here. The people who've been purposely sabotaging the public transit system, they're not dumb. They know what they're doing.
Yep. Yeah, and yeah, I want to go back to Reagan. Yeah, people also forget like maybe the only reason his health his his health accelerated to a bad part is because he did get shot and he survived it for like
Unfortunately,
for a really old man, he still survived it and was still president. So of course he's gonna have a lot of stress after that. But I don't know why there's this problem with liberals in this country. They just constantly have to say that all these fascists are like dumb, or I even seen
Or
them say that
mentally
about
ill.
Reagan. Yeah,
They
that's
did that with the fascist martyr recently in the UK already. It's going around. The guy must have been mentally ill.
it happens here all
Even in
the
the
time.
point of taking one's own life from movement, that doesn't imply they're mentally ill. It means that they are devoutly committed. Being devoutly into something that is derangingly cultish doesn't mean there's anything wrong with their mental health. It means there's something wrong with their philosophical idea of the world and how they are consciously applying themselves. And people just they want to do the eugenic thing of tying mental illness and cognitive dysfunction to evil. That's fucking profound. Mental conditions and disabilities, as someone whom suffers with them, I'll tell you now, they are amoral. They do not have their own little morality that goes, woo, evil stuff, woo. No, that's not how suffering with an illness works. And even if some of these people have illnesses, that's just something that they have because of their experiences in life. It's not indicative of them being X or Y political position. That's not how an illness works.
I agree.
I agree.
Jesus.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and it's all related. We're still suffering from the policies of Reagan and the other governors. I mean, every one of them.
Yeah, and yeah, we can't just ignore this stuff. And yeah, the topic of the stream is more of a hookup for those who are to watch it. Yeah, we may go off topic at times and then revisit the topic. When we find other stuff to add, it just what I've been seeing in with my job. There's talks more of unionizing, and I keep bringing up my job because it's relevant to what I'm talking about.
Right.
Now I can't mention the
Absolutely.
name because I still work for the company. If I mention it, I don't want to risk getting fired before I look for another job. But when they tried to unionize in a certain area in a state, they shut down the store in that particular area.
Yeah.
So this 3-day policy on my job, that's a form of union busting as a way to combat the unionizing efforts that workers at my job are trying to do. And I wouldn't be surprised if this strike they're going to use this as another opportunity to demonize unions.
Absolutely. And look at these fascist Republicans. They'll do a lot. They're doing conspiracies and shit all the time. They'll make shit up. Look how they demonize, migrants coming here like crazy. That's the dangerous part about them and the rise of fascism at the moment, connected to everybody's lives, really.
What really
Right.
pisses me off is people like acting like, oh, it's like fascism is rising. Fascism is rising. It's like wouldn't say it's rising. It's here.
Yeah, it's here.
I mean, the Black Panthers. Like George Jackson wrote about this in the late '60s. It's
Right.
like why is it that when fascism starts to affect white people, they see it as fascism, when fascism has existed for indigenous people, African people for centuries in some way or another.
Yeah.
It's like people need to stop with this white fucking bullshit and actually learn from freaking comrades who actually suffered the worst of this fascist violence, because they saw this country as fascist long before many of us did.
What's it? Hitler and Mussolini certainly saw it as fascist before Mussolini even came up with the name. I mean, what's it? And fascism even predates like Jacksonism. So, like, not the concept, not the name, but the concept. Fascism is a reactionary return of aristocratic governance of capitalist economics, neo-feudalism. Like, when I say aristocrat, I mean specifically the old feudal aristocracy, the petty bourgeoisie. It's basically a restore of old feudal governance over capital industry. Well, where have we seen that happen before? 1680s. England, counter-revolutionary of the monarchy. Or was it the 1670s? It was sometime after Cromwell had his head choppy off. I think it was his son who helped the monarchy come back into power as well. Is that his son or his brother? I can't remember. What's it? Diddly dum. Fascism is something that is sort of something that has evolved over time and eventually come to its synthesis at the end of the 19th century, but its precursors, the proto-fascist forms, really go back to Canadian corporatism, which I can't fucking remember the century that was about. I think it was the 1700s, but I might be wrong. And then you have the guild socialism, but that also did inspire anarchism and Marxism. So that one's a bit complicated. And the restoration of the English aristocracy, that was a big influence for what fascism represents. As you can see with German Nazism especially, German Nazism was very much devoted to restoring the German aristocracy that had dominant power before the bourgeois revolutions had fully taken suit by the time of the turn of the 20th century. As the German Empire had cemented itself, the German aristocracy went from being incredibly powerful to slowly waning in power. By World War One, they were still a massive power basis of it, but liberalism was starting to gain popularity within the German system, which Germany then fractured between social democracy and ordo-liberalism throughout the 20s and the early 30s. And then eventually you had fascism come about because both social democracy and ordo-liberalism were the big stinky.
Yeah.
Fascism was there to make an even bigger stink. It's like fucking... trying to think of something that smells really bad. What would be the smell of fascism? Has anyone got a scent for us?
Doggy poo.
No, that's not bad enough. That's like liberalism is shit, just outright shit.
Like
Social democracy is a sewer because sewer socialists.
Manure.
Nice little reference.
Yeah. I was gonna say here, just reading this article, and so the OCTA spokesperson Joel Slotnick said they are offering mechanics a 14.5% raise over the next 3 years, but Union Secretary Treasurer Eric Jimenez said the real issue is rising healthcare costs. And quote, if we accept the offer as in from the company right now, we'll be going over $400 a month, possibly to $500 per month with inflation, cost of food, gas, housing. It's not sustainable. And if you think about it, they're not going to raise it 14% every those 3 years every year. They just mean it through the 36 months. Or like slowly go up. But it's not just mechanics, looks like, as well as drivers are part of this. I mean, I don't know how much they really earn. I had to look more into this. But yeah, it doesn't help that diesel is at $6 a gallon in California, or sometimes 7.
Yeah, it's like Jesus Christ. I mean, I know this is being. I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but things are getting really fucking bad. Like we haven't even we haven't even reached the worst of it yet. We're not even at the end of the tunnel yet. We're not even close to being at the end of the tunnel.
Right.
Like,
slap me around the arse and call me Susan. It sounds like the last 7 years I've been going. A Great Depression's gonna come.
we're in the Great Depression.
Yeah, I know, but like I spent like from like 2016 until 2019 just trying to tell people, and then after 2019, it's been a nightmare trying to convince people. Capitalist realism is the real fucking jarring experience. It's like shopping centers are still always like randomly down on really weird specific produce every different week. It's
Right.
always something else. And people will still in their fucking minds just scratch that up to, oh, we were just in a pandemic. Yet they won't think about that pandemic in the next motion about 90% of the other things that they do. No one's fucking bothered about it that much anymore because healthy people aren't so affected by it. They got the vaccines enough to go and help them out, and then the people who will be suffering, those whom are treated poorly or have a long history of being treated poorly with the medical system and so on, which there's not much trust there, and already have preliminary conditions that make it, make it so that regardless of vaccine or not, this fucking coronavirus is a big fucking doozy. It's gonna fuck you over. The healthy community don't give a shit because that don't affect them. Out of sight, out of mind, and they would want us out of sight as much as physically possible. You get my drift?
Well,
Right.
I could tell you this much: people like there's a good amount of products in my store that have been out for months, and it's becoming more and more difficult to like because of course grocery stores make themselves look fuller than they actually are. So I wonder what's going to happen the next few months when they're on when it's no longer possible to maintain that illusion.
Right.
Well, I mean,
I
it's
agree.
actually a lot of the time it's more so that they will put out less produce than they have. But the thing is with supermarkets is that they throw out produce a shit ton. And it's not just
Yeah.
about whether it's gone off or not. It's all about whether the next truckload has came.
Yeah.
That's how they work. The next truckload comes, well, the last batch has to go, and if they can't sell it eventually and they have an overstock, they gotta throw stock, so they'll throw the stock that's closest to go off.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like we have a
Exactly.
food crisis all because they just won't stop doing that, and it's like, well, if they just stopped
It's
to
like
mitigate it.
it's like an overabundance, but it's being wasted, right? It's
It's like we can literally live in post scarcity right now, and well, it's most of that food's being wasted.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. So, do you know the oil crisis that happened during the first year of COVID? We had one here. We weren't short on oil. The oil prices had dropped so much they had to force a crisis of availability, so the price would drop. Or you could just do what the French did and burn an entire fucking what is it, 1 million barrels of oil. Uh, so like
Yeah.
yeah, they burnt a shit ton of oil and they prevented a lot of it from getting to the pumps so that they could manufacture the price to go up, and that's why there was a shortage of fuel during the coronavirus. It was no shortage.
Right. Yeah, and I'm just reading here as well. Orange County has like a rent control measure on the ballot for like
It's not.
proposition.
It's not gonna get passed. It was on the ballot last time, and it was there was a
Right.
campaign to fucking basically, oh, this would hurt homeowners. It's like, yeah, it's not going to happen. It won't happen.
Right. Oh, I know, and there's already a lawsuit that supposedly is gonna kill the ballot anyways. I was just reading, and it just shows like in this situation, like that's it just shows you how fucked up it is over here, whether it's Orange County or all of California.
Can we
Like,
bring up in general how there is no fucking cheap place to live anywhere? Because everywhere
right?
you fucking move, like if you adjust for inflation, it's the fucking same.
Yeah, yeah.
It,
I know people in places in Texas who pay like $600 just to sleep on a fucking couch. And there's a lot worse out here in California.
well, it's just
Um,
people. It's just like majority of these people who tell you to move out if you complain are usually people that can that are already in a financially comfortable position anyway. So it doesn't matter.
right, right.
It's like there's a homeless crisis that's going to happen in California because of how fucking
Well, it's
high the
here.
fucking rent is.
I mean, it's already here. But yes, it's gonna get worse.
I'm just saying that
The
majority of
communists
them
just up
fucking,
and run. Who's going to be there to organize? That's the problem.
yeah, that's the problem too. It's like like many people in where I live are one paycheck away from being homeless. One, if
Right,
that. And that this is why you're seeing these homeless camps being built in some of these states because they know that there'll be a large section of the proletariat that will not be they'll be homeless. They have to put them somewhere. They can't have millions of people out in the street.
right,
This country is for and is by and for the petty bourgeoisie. Like they have to cater towards their needs. They have
By
to.
and for the bourgeoisie
that's what
as a
scares me
whole.
about. That's what scares me about all these fucking fascists voting for more cops. Like anybody that supports funding more cops, they're just fascists, and they're putting us in a dangerous situation for sure. But I, yeah.
Well, these people are going to benefit even regardless if they vote or not.
Oh, I know. I mean, there's people who aren't voting and still want cops as well. Well, and maybe not as much as in the reverse sense of it, but you know what I mean. It's it's a problem
I
in
mean,
this country.
I would talk about other states, but I don't live there. So I can't talk about that. I only can talk about my experience living in California that anybody who actually thinks that this fucking state's a paradise or they thinks this state's is communist is fucking dumb and hasn't actually lived here.
Right. I
It
don't
is-
even have health care.
In order to
Only right.
live in Orange County and you're disabled, you have to be part of a program because you're not gonna be able to you're not gonna have a roof over your head otherwise. Without those programs, I would be homeless. Like the regional center is the only reason I have a roof over my head. Because it's through the regional center I can find there's actually programs where I could actually have like certain institutions help pay half of my rent. In that fact, that's the only reason I live in the place I live right now. I don't technically pay all of my rent. I pay half of it. Because without assistance from the program that I'm in, I would have to pay over $2,400. So yeah,
Jeez.
my rent is $1,211. Yes, it's getting more and more expensive, and this is for a room that I'm currently in. So for one room that I'm in, I'm paying that much. I was reluctant to do it in the first place, but there was no choice. Yes, I have my own room. It's nice to be able to have my own room, but it isn't without a cost. It's becoming more and more difficult for families to live together as well because, I mean, they basically have done like these fucking parasitic, scumbags have made it so only certain amount of people can live in the house. Like one of my friend's house, like you could probably have 6 people live there without a problem, but they won't. But only 4 are allowed to live there.
There's a lot of problems with a lot of landlords for sure. One of the things, in some ways, like there used to be times where I had a lot of family members living at our place and without charge at all, and I was in a little bit of a lucky situation, but that's also because a lot of Hispanic and like indigenous families will like do their best to like pack the house. But I know that, but that doesn't apply to every single family, of course. But I know that for sure, in other places, they can't do it because the landlords will check, or they just gotta have the people not there, and and there's people who have to like hide their pets as well. They need those pets for other, not just pets, they're just companions as well. Sometimes even for disability. And it's California is really fucked up for the whole. They let landlords ban people they don't like. It's segregation.
And let's be honest. I'm just gonna say this: you have more rights in California, but it's a fucking illusion. It really is an illusion. You don't have more rights. It's bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you don't have any more rights than you do anywhere else. Yeah, things are better if you lose your social security. You have a better chance. You can get it back faster in California than you would in other states. But that doesn't. But that's like not really a high bar to set. Like it's literally a way to keep the disabled trapped in California.
Oh,
It really is.
I mean, like 16, 14 years ago, I'm not going to say what city because of, reasons, but a certain city around Southern California, their crazy fascist mayor, they actually wanted to pass like a law to like ban basically anybody without a so-called green card from being able to rent. And like and like that could come back considering what's happening now.
Wait, was it in Orange County by any chance?
It's possible that there could have been that in the 90s there, but there was
I do know one city in Orange County that is a fascist fucking haven. That's Huntington Beach.
Right.
As opposed to the rest of Orange County, which is just fascist.
Okay, well, there's some areas that are more fascist than others.
I mean, like, what's it? We're fucking gonna start doing like what Hitler does, where he measures the Aryans, and he's like, the Germans are 80, the English are 30, the Soviets are 50.
Like Huntington Beach and Newport are the most fascist cities in Orange County.
Those are Republican strongholds, aren't they?
They have like Nazi cops. I've literally There's been proof of that before.
Yeah, and I've heard about Nazi demonstrations that have happened out there. Fucking, there was some during the Black Lives Matter protests.
Oh,
Okay,
Farbrook is completely
I lived
reactionary.
in both of those cities. I could tell you from experience how those those are fascists.
Yeah, like people, I'm so sick of these fucking neoliberals and rat libs pretending that this fucking state is some paradise. It's one of the worst things that fucking America does with the whole world is portray these like false realities.
Neoliberalism doesn't exist as a functional ideology anymore. There's two confines of it exists. The economic remnants of neoliberal policy that the bourgeoisie are fond of, that is hard to get rid of, and the cultural phenomena within the petty bourgeoisie, which doesn't actually indict their politics to be liberal. It's a liberal cope because liberalism is waning and they're trying to at least feel liberal whilst committing to shit they know is not. Like, and I'm not even, it's not even about whether they actively know. Consciously speaking, they have to have some awareness of the fact that the system has gotten worse. Capitalist realism may still be in operation, but the curtains are open. There's a window there, but they can see through that motherfucking window. The curtain is open. So now that they're seeing everything is in ruin, and they're tasting some of it, but they're still sectioned off from it. They're still not actively experiencing what everyone else is experiencing down in the lower classes and especially around the world. But they are seeing it, and they've got their own experiences that they're playing off, which will inspire them to want to consciously organize as a class, where the bourgeoisie and the petty bourgeoisie are going to have their own conflicting interests. The bourgeoisie are going to lock down on what remains of neoliberalism as much as they can, the big bourgeoisie, because they have, not all of them though, some of them will support what I'll get into afterwards, but a lot of them will lock down onto neoliberalism because it's profitable and it's what they know. They'll stick to it. Liberalism is the favorite state of the capitalists. They like, what is meant by liberalism is economic liberality, laissez-faire. They love that. And laissez-faire is not laissez-faire for everyone. It's just laissez-faire for big business. A lot of people get confused as to what laissez-faire means. It means freedom of capital to choose where it goes, basically. Lazy bus fare. So lazy bus fare capitalism, they love that shit. The petty bourgeoisie are like, oh, fuck, we're paying taxes, the big bourgeoisie aren't, and the way that they see it is that the way the middle class are seeing it now is middle class people pay taxes, so bourgeoisie people won't, and so can't and don't, and then you've got, they pay their taxes to pay for the existence of poor people. That's the middle class mentality, that they're paying all the way for poor people to exist. And you get two camps there. You get the social democrats, where their form of fascism, their class collaborationism, wants to seek for society to have the bourgeoisie pay in more and yield people together, and the more racist and eugenic elements of social democracy that definitely exist. And do not think I'm saying social democracy isn't racist, because just like fascism, whilst it can be not racist, kind of technically, it never is. It always is racist, always is ableist in some way, shape, or form. So just keep a note on that, because capitalism requires that to keep division amongst the working class. But they will be more willing to at least pay for the existence of poor white people than a lot of the fascists might be. Fascists still need an element of the poor white community, but they're just as disposable as any extremely poor community in regards to, so long as the upper and middle sectors of the working class and the middle class are predominantly organized within those white communities, and that exists within social democracy too. Fascism is much more centered on a more open door, brutal policy of engaging with these things. Soft power is not needed. They don't see the need to go in soft about it. Soft power is utilized in all forms of capitalism, but the predominance with fascism is a brutal engagement of junta, of dictatorship, of king's rule, monarchy, essentially, but dressed up like a republic. It's kind of funny. Or in the cases of places like Spain, I think Italy didn't get rid of the monarchy until like halfway through the war, and then the UK still just outright monarchy. While, like I said, they will paying towards the lower classes to some degree of their own ethnicity and those who aren't disabled. They predominantly focus on the middle and upper classes with fascism. The class collaborationism of fascism and social democracy, their collaboration, yes, that exists. Is it unifying? No. The bourgeoisie in Italy would refuse to even be a part of of like a single syndicate of workers and capitalists. And Mussolini, as all opportunists do, revised his ideas and made separate syndicates for them to then form into united syndicates, so the capitalists could do their own thing. But what I got detracted away from what I was originally saying, because funnily enough, I've actually remembered taking note. It's one of 5 times that's ever fucking gonna happen. The petty bourgeoisie and the capitalists now are gonna have a squabble over corporatocracy, which is what the bourgeoisie, their fascism typically entails, where they let some of the upper petty bourgeois and petty bourgeoisie be involved with things, but it's a really strictly upper class sort of collaborationism that goes on with that shit. And the middle class and lower class start feeling left out to dry, and the lower class really are left out to dry. But the corporatism seeks to build a more like, okay, you have the proletariat and the middle class at some form of a table in that regard. Like there is a split going on where the bourgeoisie want to do their corporatocracy, and the petty bourgeoisie, regardless of whether they want to call it corporatism or not, whether they want to do it for social democracy or fascism, they want corporatism because it will bring greater like unifying strength within America around its imperialist institutions at a moment while it needs to expand its imperial outreach while its empire is dwindling. So, sorry, I'm a mealy-mouthed guy. I can't speak properly. But the point I'm laying out is that the United States is in a state of panic. That's why it's trying to diversify its military.
Yeah, and
state of panic, and that's why it's trying to adopt a Chinese-style imperialist system too.
Yeah.
Well, I like to address Menace's question. I do not know. I have never lived in Irvine, so I wish I could tell you what I think of that city. Is it how reactionary it is? I honestly do not know, so I cannot comment on it. I can only talk about places that I've lived and places that I've been. I know Fountain Valley is another area in Orange County that's extremely reactionary. I mean, it's really not much different from, if I have to be honest, from where I currently live, which I'm not going to say here because I'm not going to dox myself.
Yeah, I don't want to dox my. Yeah.
He lives in the independent town of Jacobstown.
I lived in Anaheim as well. So Anaheim is another fascist city. Buena Park is also reactionary. It's like when you see what I'm getting at here.
Yeah.
All of Orange County is reactionary. It's just what degree. Which part of Orange County is the least reactionary? Probably Santa Ana would probably be the least reactionary and close to Mesa.
Oh, Costa Mesa for sure. I mean, that's where.
I said the least reactionary. I'm not saying they aren't reactionary. I said least.
Wait. Oh, you said Costa Mesa. It's because I sometimes confuse it with Mira Mesa.
Okay, I said the least reactionary. I'm not saying they aren't reactionary. I said least.
Right.
Where it's safest to be, like areas where you can be left wing without being lynched. Close to Mesa is far safer to be a leftist than the other cities that I've mentioned. Every other city, if you were even be a open like socialist, you'll fucking be lynched. Not joking.
Oh,
Long Beach is part of Orange County.
I will say that.
Long Beach is so fucking. I haven't lived in Long Beach, but I've been there. To be honest, it's as reactionary as fucking as Huntington Beach. It's not much different, honestly.
Yeah. Oh, I would say what's even worse around San Diego County is Fallbrook. The Fallbrook is completely reactionary. One of the most just completely homophobic too, for sure. It's
for my viewers who live in California. You don't say where you live. Just tell like us from your experience how reactionary the area that you live in is, because I know a lot of my viewers live in California.
Yeah, and yeah, for sure. And I just saw right now that I know it's not in California, but Portland City Council up in Oregon approves Mayor Wheeler's plan to ban unsanctioned camping. I mean, yeah, this country's like it is. It's the contradictions are like intensifying.
Sorry.
What the fuck was that? No, the world is not coming to an end. No, it's not coming to an end.
Fucking well, the next time I go for a shit, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, fascism is rising, but that does not mean the world's coming to an end. The world will only come to an end if we refuse to do anything. And no, there's people that are resisting fascism all over the world. Even in our country, there's resistance against it. Giving up would essentially would basically be letting the world end. No, humanity is not going to give up without a fight when it comes to fascism. And there is no winning for fascism. It's socialism or extinction. There is no middle ground. Like, there is no winners if fascism wins. There is no winners. Not even those who want fascism. There is no winners. They're not going to be able to escape this planet. They'll be dead like the rest of us if fascism wins. So if you ask me, they lose too in fascism.
Yeah.
Anyway, I just wanted to address that. Yeah, California is extremely reactionary. It's like, but then again, the thing with reactionaries, Republicans, they can't comprehend anything beyond bipartisan politics. They have a one-dimensional view on how the world actually works. And I don't consider them dangerous compared to the fascists that actually do see beyond the two-party line. The educated ones that are the ones we should be concerned with. The Tucker Carlsons are the ones.
Tusker Coruscant.
The cultured thugs. Even though I hate to say this, Spanky. Those are educated fascists.
Hanky McMorpinstan.
I would say those are educated fascists. They're not dumb. Like, I don't know how you feel about Comrade Confucius, but he actually was very spot on regarding the pet socks, that they are not stupid. These fascists, they're not dumb.
Yeah.
They know exactly what they're doing.
All groups have smart people, but it's all about what's smart to focus on. And in America, if people focus on the patsies as the element, they would be missing the bigger trend. Like, patsies actually detract away from the bigger problem. They're a sect of dengists. There's a lot of dengists in the first world. Dengism is fascism, just for those that don't know. Dengism
is basically
well, to be specific, I mean Deng Xiaoping, Xi Jinping thought, because that is the prevailing ideology today. People aren't following 80s, 90s Dengism. I mean, Deng Xiaoping thought, Xi Jinping thought. That's the prevailing ideology they follow, and it's fascist. As I've heard fascists even laugh over fucking how great China is. They go and point out how fucking what's it? Well, laugh wouldn't be the right word. What's the right word? Fucking, like cheer for how great China is. I'm fucking trying to think of over authentic joy.
Yeah.
They will point out how China has a regional corporatist system and how China represents the best kind of system a nationalist system could embody. Nick Griffin called China the best example of nationalism in the world today. Nick Griffin was the leader of the former British Nationalist Party, or Nazi
Yeah.
Party, if you want to really accurately name it. And he said that they were the best example of nationalism in the world today, and that they are just confused that they are communist, and
Yeah.
warned his supporters not to be concerned about that and to get past that communist label, because they actually are a great example of what the fascists want to do in the world today. And that's a
Yeah.
European consistent thing, mainland Europe.
Well,
Well, can we just be honest? Can we just be honest that Dangism is just the highest
Yeah.
stage of Trotskyism? Because
Yeah.
everything I've noticed about Dengis, they all of them are former Trots without exception.
There's Titoists who like Dang as well. Um, oh, and I hate to break the news to you, Stone, but there are some fascists who like Hu Jintao. Remember him from
Yeah, Hu
China?
Jintao.
Yeah, there's actually people in America like fascists who like him. So
Hu Jintao, if I remember rightly, was the guy you fucking like predecessed Xi Jinping, and basically fucking groom the guy into the position he's in today. Xi Jinping's essentially an heir to Hu Jintao's power. Like that's the way these systems work. It doesn't matter if you got bourgeois democracy. Leaders are groomed into the positions of power they go into. Heck, fuck me. You want to look at like the interactions between our head of state and our prime minister. The only prime minister that our head of state, the Queen, has had any real issue with in the entire time she was in power was Margaret Thatcher. Why? Because Margaret Thatcher didn't sit and get groomed by the Queen like every prime minister is. Every prime minister
right.
gets advice from the Queen and works with the Queen to issue policy. Margaret Thatcher refused to, and that's why Margaret Thatcher was hated by the monarchy. These systems like leaders that are malleable to the already operative systems in power. It's a constant pass on of what's the word? That it's always about passing down the method of technique for the next stage forward, and ensuring that you groom a power basis that keeps the status quo as it is.
I didn't know
Capitalism likes to constantly grab onto stability because it's always about to lose it.
I didn't even know Margaret Thatcher was hated by the royal family. I never knew that.
Well, the Queen didn't like South Africa, and Margaret Thatcher did. That's a bit of a reduction, but the Queen.
Wait, this white supremacist bitch hated South Africa.
Well, she didn't support like a non-white supremacist South Africa. She just supported the previous government to the apartheid government because she was one of the mediators when the apartheid government rose up. And then the monarchy supported the apartheid government when they came into power. Worked with them for ages. And then when the whole world was starting to turn to sanctioning South Africa, the monarchy agreed with that notion. The prime minister did not, and so there was a conflict of interests there. It's one of them.
Well,
Right.
I know Margaret Thatcher is one of the most hated prime ministers in the country's entire history. Like she's very divisive. Well, except for the um, middle class and this usual people that usually love people like Thatcher and Reagan.
Yeah, no, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and Hu Jintao's the one who did the whole harmonious socialist society thing as the slogan.
Harmonious.
I'll be back in a second, guys. Just continue the conversation.
Sure.
If we can't get
I'll
this
look at the
conversation
chat.
back to maybe to what we were before,
Yeah.
maybe not
Mhm.
like
Might be a good
workers or
idea,
vegans, whatever. If you can,
Sure, don't worry. There's no Soviet flag emoji. Yeah, I know. I wish. Yeah, this country's in the it's everything's escalating as usual, and unfortunately, if there's more bus strikes, it's definitely gonna affect a lot of people. But it's pretty clear that this fucking system is wants it, and of course, it's a fucking election year, so these fucking politicians have their knives out like crazy, and they'll backstab the workers, you know, the proletariat, the Lumpen Pro, anybody for their fucking power. But they're gonna mess up, and they can't go that far, in my opinion. I mean, the related to like Orange County for sure, or in general, this whole freaking state, housing is housing prices are actually in the dip thanks to capitalism. And I know that there's going to be a lot of these petty bourgeois types and others who got loans and all. Well, I mean, sometimes they give out loans to people who aren't even in necessarily that position, but they're going to be in a lot of trouble. And there's just no way. There's just no way they can evict people, in my opinion, not without people using their hands and fists to, or
What are you talking about?
I was talking about the housing and all that in the whole state, and that there's no way that they can evict people and without there being a big fight.
Well, there's going to be.
Right.
Yeah, that moratorium fucking ain't gonna last.
Like the moratorium, they have no idea how much that pretty much saved the system from destroying itself. If it weren't for that moratorium,
Bro, they nearly didn't pass it.
Right, but they might be that greedy enough to get rid of it soon. They really might be, but I don't know. As far as
if they want a bunch of violence and chaos and anarchy, then fine, let them do it.
When Labour stopped this from happening in the last big recession, I know we've had a couple since 08, but the last big recession in 08, Labour stopped that kind of housing. I mean, we started a housing crisis still, regardless, but they stopped that mass eviction process that we nearly went through, that the US went through, because the banks and shareholders wanted to do the same thing here. We've got conservatives in power now, and they're not really interested in doing that shit. I mean, maybe some of them are. I don't know, but it's going to be one of them where quite likely going to end up having an eviction problem in the UK. Housing prices are soaring ridiculously. We had so this winter is like a 300% increase in heating and electric costs.
Jeez. Yeah, and I hearing rumors that the parts of the southeast in America, Florida and all that, they're kind of worried about a diesel shortage that would affect truckers. And I don't know, maybe they're over panicking, but you never know. You really never know. I mean, things have gone crazy enough.
I think in some areas in the country, you might have a shortage of certain kinds of foods.
Yeah, it's already happening. They're playing around with the shelves, and they've been decreasing the amount of content of food, and whether it's cereal and all that. They just want to make things look bigger, but that doesn't mean, and I think there will be some kind of a winter issue up in Maine and New Hampshire due to there's just not as much infrastructure for like gas. It's just going to be crazy expensive for them, apparently. That's 3 states to their old colonies.
If you ask me, let's say Trump gets into power again, Trump not being president at this time is the best thing that could have ever happened to him.
Yeah,
because now he has another election run. I think he wanted this to go down like this. Like the whole coup thing really works in his favor, because it shows that, look, they've taken away my power. Things are waning. I need your support. And that actually really falls into why the FBI were heavily involved with the Proud Boys. and were
Right.
heavily involved in organizing that coup. It isn't because the Democrats were trying to catch Trump on his toes. Trump controlled the
Right.
FBI at that point.
Right.
And if you actually look at Trump's election, the FBI supported Trump because Trump was opposed to the CIA. The FBI and CIA have a lot of rivalry with each other because of overlap.
Right.
And so the FBI being granted a lot more power would have been in their favor, especially in regards to policing. You know, when it came to squashing down the Black Panthers, the FBI was one of the biggest tools of the American police system that was utilized in doing that. Trump ignited something that was already something the FBI and the CIA had a problem with and was kicking off about already. So that whistleblower Jimmy Dore likes to bring on from the CIA. He's a whistleblower from the CIA because the CIA were not focusing on communists and anarchists. That's why he whistleblowed. He's against them focusing on terrorists of the Muslim and other variety because he wants them to focus on communists and anarchists. And Jimmy Dore thinks that's a great guy to show off as one of the good guys who are breaking against this. But you know, that Trump's whole directive is to bring things about the anarchists. It's also quite interesting that like Marxists just aren't even really considered a threat, and it's anarchists. It really sits sour in the face of a lot of MLs just want to shit on anarchists all the time. It's like, well, at the end of the day, what are we doing? What are they doing? If they're doing more than us and are perceived more as a threat, we might need to actuate ourselves more and make a greater presence, show camaraderie with our non-Marxist communist brothers, the more anarchists.
Yeah,
I'll be honest with you. Anarchists are more revolutionary in North America. If you don't like that, well, that tough fucking shit. That's
more revolutionary or not, because revolution in North America is a defeatist program because it's in the first world. Revolutionary defeatism is the program. It's more so that they're doing more work, and that therefore puts them in the actuation of more revolutionary work.
Right, they do more revolutionary work, right?
Like in the first world, everyone's kind of in a sour point. But yeah, no, what we saw during Black Lives Matter showed more revolutionary work being done from anarchists when some of them managed to even, take territory.
Oh, Stone, I mean, even like one of the things with these like rad lib types, these kind of like fascist neoliberals, they'll actually, you know what they'll do about the ones that they oppose Antifa? You know what they'll actually say? They'll say that Antifa is that they're just anarchists. That's
how. One of the a Vosh fan said to me today, they said the Nazis were based.
That sounds about right. I mean, fucking Vosh is a really big fan of Ukraine, so the Ukrainian government specifically. I mean,
it
was that clip from the debate that American Johnson had with Vosh. Just for context, I posted the clip. I called it Vosh dog whistles to fascists. We basically did an anti-Semitic dog whistle. I will not repeat it here. You could find the clip on my channel. You could easily search for it.
And one thing too, Stone, is like, you know who else benefits from losing? Bolsonaro, because now when things are going to go to this shit, a lot more shit, I should say.
Blame it on the left. Well,
he's going to blame it on
Lula. Lula. They'll say it's the left because Lula has already been internationally recognized as left wing. Lula isn't left wing, lol.
all those Bolsonaro fascists, they love saying that Lula, they call him like a narco communist and all this. It's completely ridiculous. I don't even know what narco communism means. That's just some like settler thing that came up with.
What, narco or anarcho?
No, they mean narco as in
NARCO.
Yeah,
that's short for narcotics. They're calling him a narcotic communist.
Yeah,
is he a part of the mafia? Fucking, to be honest, he might be a part of this new mafia formed by Elon Musk. It's the techno mafia, whatever the fuck they call it. It's not even a mafia. It's the mafia for nerds. What's it? But
Yeah,
Yeah, no, Lula and Bolsonaro were challenging each other out on the battlefield of fascism between social democracy on your it's to the left of the fascist candidate, but basically still right wing, and then to the right, basically right wing, but left of the fascist candidate, you have the fascist candidate. It's a squabble over like, do we burn down the fucking Amazon to build the fucking motorway, or do we chop it down to build the motorway? Like
yeah,
either way, they're building that highway through the Amazon, and they're building those mines for the Amazon. That is something that was planned before Bolsonaro started burning down the
and
woods.
yeah, and you just know that like the Belt and Road Initiative like accelerated the burning of the Amazon. Let's be honest here. You know what I mean? The whole
Brazil was
BRICS.
in BRICS.
They
They probably
still
still
is.
are, aren't they?
Yeah, Lula put Brazil in BRICS. Lula's the one, and Bolsonaro could never get out of it. Yeah,
Yeah, I thought as much. Why would he? I mean, it's very advantageous. I'm surprised the US hasn't kicked the pissy about it.
right. Biden's celebrating that Lula's in.
Why am I not surprised?
Because Lula will
Yeah,
bring greater stability in the region. It's all about stability. I mean, you know,
yeah,
that's the goal of fascism is to well in the bourgeois mind the petty bourgeoisie of their own interests also in regards to this further than just mere stability, but the capitalists their main goal is stabilize the system, the whack job shit that the petty bourgeois believe within their fascist ideologies is not of importance to them unless it is also a part of what directly protects their bottom line. um, that's why fascism is not really an ideology where the capitalists are doing all the pontificating on all the major details. Bourgeois fascism is very apparent to this. It's not
mhm,
very interested in cultural issues or the social structure of things. It's very much centered on corporatocracy. That's what bourgeois. I mean, I know petty bourgeois. They're very fucking similar to, but the petty bourgeois, which is where fascism is more uh, relative to the class in regards to its ideological origins. You know, it's built off the interests of the former feudal aristocracy. They have a
yeah,
wider interest in it. They love the idea of a capitalism where they have greater control over the institutions and structures of society, as within the petty bourgeois upper sector, where they get rule like lords, rule like kings. Look at the way the Nazis ruled Germany, and especially people like Hermann Goring, and how much they
yeah,
lavished themselves with fucking gold, pranced around like fucking lords, all because they want to live in their petty bourgeois dream of what perfect society is. The petty bourgeois, the feudal aristocracy, historically have seen that the better society was one that was eroded away by what was it that Evola put it as, like, capitalism gone too far, and that's their mindset. They think capitalism went the wrong direction when in the Enlightenment period, so they want to do a neo-Enlightenment period, which is actually
yeah,
what the Great Reset is. The Great Reset isn't, oh no, the world was nuked or global warming fucked it, although they do
right,
tie that into it as like God's will calling for it, and that's why there's a lot of bourgeoisie and petty bourgeoisie that think global warming is God's will for the world. But anyway,
right,
the Great Reset is actually about socioeconomics and going backwards in a way where they can reset the power bases. They want to keep all of the economic developments capitalism has made, but they want to reset the back towards a more feudal style of governance. So yeah, crazy shit.
right. And today as well, a great white shark had like turned out dead in San Diego. It shows you that the environment is being poisoned thanks to the climate crisis from capitalism. Um,
Capitalism. It's bloody shit, mate.
Yeah, it really is for sure.
What a depressing stream this turned out to be. Such lovely topics.
Smile like you mean it.
Well, this is what. I mean, there is a reason why fucking communists tend to be fucking depressed people. I mean, we look at we fucking analyze the world. We look at the world around us, and
Right.
it's fucked.
We have to have a grounded sense of optimism because you'll never inspire anyone to be more active if it's like, well, yeah, we're fucked. No one will get inspired by that.
I know that. It's just it's overwhelming sometimes when you look at the world, everything around you.
I mean, one of the biggest problems with a lot of people in the first world is they're like, we will stand and defend X country from imperialism. It's like, okay, well, what's the org you're associated with doing for the people in your own country? And it's like, because if we can't even defend our own people, a fucking 17-year-old boy gunning down protesters and not a single person, and there were left-wing people there that were armed, was like, fucking, yeah, shoot him back. Just fucking shoot him back. Even the one geezer who got shot in the arm, he had a gun, just shoot the right-wing cunts. He's a fascist who came out to shoot people because they were defending black people. Don't do any of this citizens arrest. No, you are in a legal country to shoot someone who has started aggression against someone. He is an active shooter. Active shooter law means you can gun that fucking pig down where he stands.
Yeah. But I don't know. It's just the thing about it is just if they can't even handle fucking someone like Rittenhouse, fucking there's people far more competent than that kid. Far more.
It's the it's the lack of coordination around things, and it's not even just at that extreme. If we can't even organize around union struggles and strikes and aid in strike motions, if we can't pull forward and provide food bank operations, homeless shelter operations for lumpen proletarians and the and proletarians that can't afford to eat, what are we supposed to do for people around the world? How are we supposed to show any solidarity for the international brotherhood and sisterhood of the proletariat if we can't even do it within our own local regions? That's agree. A big problem with a lot of people. You especially see that with the people who infantilize over other empires as like fucking great saviors of international struggle, like those who think, oh yeah, Russia could totally be a one of the richest capitalist countries in the world and not be imperialist. As if that's how it works. Instead of China, I mean, like you have the most billionaires in the world, but totally not imperialist, guys. You cannot have billionaires without imperialism. That was a creation of imperialism.
Stealing people's ports and like backing wars with the U.S. and sanctioning North Korea. It's like, jeez, but yeah, I agree. There has to be some grounded optimism. I do think that we'll be successful against any physical eviction, even if they lift it in paper.
I personally don't think they'll be able to do it. I mean, there's just too much fucking like chaos that it would cause if they evicted tens of millions of people.
There's not enough cops, really.
They won't do it. Like, yeah. The petty the fucking bourgeois, whatever you want to call these people, the landlords.
The burger men, as Engels would put, which is actually an accurate statement. Bourgeoisie comes from the old Anglo-Saxon word bourgeois, which is B-U-R-G-E-R.
What would you call the landlords that aren't most of them petty bourgeoisie?
Well, I mean, landlords, they're a weird one. They come from past times. They predate the bourgeoisie, but these days they're bourgeoisie. They are the burger men now. They're not the landlords of the feudal era, technically, kind of. It's complicated. Capitalism only went halfway as...
here's the thing. The big bourgeoisie are not going to let their empire crumble because under the whims of some landlords. No, they're not going to let that happen. There isn't enough police. Like this country would tear itself apart. Like, there's no way that
Absolutely.
they would fucking do it.
The
Not
thing
saying
is,
that they
though,
would.
is it's cheaper for them to just increase the size of the police force than it is for them to actually keep everyone housed. Because the system
Yeah,
would have to pay the bourgeoisie to keep these housed when they could just put that money into hiring more police officers, which in a lot of places they are starting to just increase the training pay and all the other pays for being a police officer so much that your
yeah,
training pay will pay better than most of the jobs you're working out to fucking get. So a lot of people will become police officers just because it makes fucking decent money, and then there you
yeah,
go, you're fucking
yeah.
encapsulated in a service in the service system of the police where they train you to think a certain way, look at the lower class in a certain way, and you become one of the big blue line of silence, the blue wall of silence, if you want to call it.
Right. Yeah, I agree. For sure.
Well, I still don't see. I don't. Don't see them letting tens of millions of people be homeless.
There won't be tens of millions.
The thing is that these
Not in
fucking
not in
fu-
California alone. Like
right.
across the country, it could be tens of millions,
Well,
but
I was saying I was looking throughout the entire country, not just
but
within
that's
California.
manageable. America's huge. So America is what is it like 340 million people?
Yeah.
They can do it. Like it's controllable. It would go wrong for them. It's not going to be a good effect. I ain't going to say they're going to get what they want out of it entirely, but it's not
Well,
unlikely that they could hire more police officers and just take the brunt because Because the point I'm laying out is the government would have to subsidize the rent if they don't throw people out, subsidize mortgages if they don't throw people out. If you take in the value of like every single police officer's yearly salary and combine it together for how many more police officers you would need, let's say you need one police officer to police like fucking 20 people worth. You can really math and round it up, and it actually come down that like, well, if it costs like fucking if sorry, I can't English, is that like the parable number of it is it's going to cost a hell of a lot less to pay the salaries of all those police officers that are added on than it would be to cover the housing at a certain point, because they wouldn't throw out absolutely fucking everyone that could be thrown out. They're going to throw out enough so that they can meet their profit dividends. It's useful to throw people into the underclass. It shows people that there is a chance it's going to happen and keeps people's heads on the fucking under the grass, just in case people start getting a bit too fucking cocky against the system and start trying to rear their head out. But they need to keep a strong middle class, otherwise they fuck themselves in the ass.
yeah.
Trump literally rose up to do that. That was one of his main policies. It's also one of Bernie's main policies, funnily enough. But
Right.
and Trump succeeded. It was 46% middle class in America when he got into power, middle income. And by the time he was coming to the end of his thing, is somewhere in the 50s. So he increased it. I say
Right.
him. During his government, the vacillation of the middle class increased. The middle class vacillated in a way where their numbers increased. It's a transitionary class. It's constantly changing in state.
Yeah, I just saw that weirdly like this is how like ridiculous capitalism can get with the waste. There's a Circle K. Circle K is like this gas station, and but it was in El Paso. So instead of they have a diesel tanker, but for whatever reason, some idiot like put unleaded gas instead, and so all the trucks that were buying diesel, they're putting the wrong gas in their own fucking vehicles now. And
Oh,
that shit
wow.
can fuck up any fucking car, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
Yeah,
You'll absolutely knob out the
the
fucking.
transformer. Yeah,
Not just that as well. You'll fuck up the fucking what's it? The fuel injection system as well.
yeah, and we're talking about
Diesel requires, so the thing is as well, is diesel requires more energy to burn. So like the petrol will be burning
right,
way too hot for what it is.
right, and diesel's more expensive than regular gas. So
Imagine that you fill your truck up. It's like, wait, what? Fuck! Why is it so much cheaper? I mean, it's cheaper to use diesel though because it burns slower, but diesel has worse. What's it? Greenhouse gases in it, more methaning diesel
yeah. Well,
and sulfur.
here in California, the diesel's $1 above the other gases. I don't know why we're just when we in this state
Well, it's
drills
just
like
sulfur, not methane.
Like in California right now, it's like almost $7 a fucking gallon.
yeah, in some places, yeah, for sure. We're above 550 by the average, and the above average is ridiculous.
I don't know what fucking price petrol is. I take the bus.
This isn't sustainable. It really isn't. None of this is. This is why strikes are going to become. I wouldn't be surprised if strikes become a commonplace. Actually,
I
Right.
I think he's trying to say we're overproducing. I'll have you know that is not fascism.
but careful, guys. We're promoting degrowth by with this discussion. Be careful.
Bro, like
Oh,
fucking yeah,
right face.
when you throw away enough food to fucking feed the world several times over. Oh nah, yeah, fucking we definitely need to keep growing, guys, or even keep it at this point. It's like,
Oh,
yeah,
we need the profit to go up, remember? That's what they said.
you know, like it's ridiculous, man. It's just
But don't you want more food? I'm sorry. I'll stop.
Malthusianism preaches overproduction. It wants society to produce to surplus. It just thinks that the population is not effectively providable enough. So the whole conclusion that came out of Malthusianism was work the working class to death,
Right.
create a post-scarce society for the aristocracy, leave the workers out. Whether that's Malthus's original idea or not, the bourgeoisie certainly took and ran with it. Liberalism of the 1800s paid workers very fucking little to mass produce the fuck out of shit.
Yeah. And then,
Malthusianism was eventually combined with phrenology and social Darwinism to form eugenics.
yeah, absolutely. And then Evola does he promotes Malthusianism too. Well, yeah. So he has like his spiritual version of it, but yeah, for sure. And
But with to drive things back to topic, strike action needs to appear everywhere it can. Any open chance communists in the workforce have to agitate unionization and strike action, they should damn well bloody take it. It's the being in the workforce. You have some of the we lumpen proletarians. Fucking I say that I'm the fucking unemployed bastard here. Hello in the top corner. But the fucking we don't have labor power to fucking go, "Way, we're gonna strike, you ain't gonna fucking nah, yeah." So like take that strike, take that labor power action that you have and try and organize it. There's gonna be someone somewhere within your workplace you can organize with, and fucking heck, you can go on about how much it's going to put you on the bottom line and you could lose your job and it strung you out. I really fucking understand that. But it's one of them where so many people working in these jobs, including yourself, the imaginary person I've made up that I'm speaking to is an esoteric example of many, many people in this working class position. Well, that's a fucking mouthful. You're going to be fucking on your ass struggling for money now anyway. Food crisis is coming up. Rent crisis is coming up. Monetary crisis in general. Organization and strike action is a paramount cause at this moment of time. And not just within the workplace. Something that even lumpen pros like myself, I'm back in. But the rent unions, housing unions and rent strikes. Things like that need to be organized as well to try and ensure people can keep their housing and we don't have the problem come forward where people get thrown out and the government just tanks money into the police force to keep us subdued. It's not off the table. They're willing to do that shit.
Yeah.
I think we could end it there because I feel like the longer this goes on, the less it's going to resemble what we originally talked about.
Well,
Yeah.
I'll just say I agree with Stone. We do need a rent strike forever. I mean,
Well,
I'm being honest.
there is one last thing I want to talk about though, is next week. Oh, not next week. Whatever. On Monday, we're going to be doing a stream on voting because I'm not promoting voting, by the way. Just making it
Be-
clear for everyone here. I'm not
Every time
promoting voting.
he's voted for Biden. Now, I know he lives in California, but every time he's voted, not for the president, for governor, every time he's voted for governor, he's voted for Biden. They keep telling him Biden doesn't run, but he's such a Biden fan.
But
Can't
consider
help
the
it.
fact that the midterms are here, and I feel like I'm not going to do a video on the midterms until about a week or two afterwards.
right.
But I think it's important that as communists we talk about voting. So next stream, I'm going to be talking. I'm going to be talking about voting. Whoever is available to talk about it, because that's a topic that is as important to discuss as this particular one that we've been discussing for the past
Fucking
2 hours. Yeah,
Arizona right now.
we've gone off
There,
topic in this stream from time to time, but a lot of these stuff we were talking about, public transportation, unionizing, the reactionary,
right.
um,
Yeah.
part of culture that is California. It's like
Yeah.
all this stuff is connected because
Interconnected. Yeah. It's
what
socioeconomic.
Even still, you get three autistic people in a virtual room or a real room. It works both ways, and we'll fucking go off topic. It's one of them. I'm
well,
terrible for it.
I'm not too bothered by it because we got a lot of good discussions because it's not often I get to talk about,
Right.
especially on a public forum, because it is essential that we that people who live in whoever states that we live in, we should be talking about our states. I'm going by for American communists here. It, we should talk about our experiences in the states that we live in, because as someone that has been living in California all my life, I can tell you the reality what it's like living in California
Yeah.
versus the fantasy that reactionaries and neoliberals fucking say about the state.
Yeah.
Like
Exactly.
it's not a paradise. It isn't fucking a communist fucking state. It's only people who say that stupid shit are people who've never lived in this reactionary cesspool.
Yeah.
It's difficult to get around. Yet if you're poor and you're disabled, you can't get out because it costs money to fucking move, and not to mention with the way the infrastructure is designed, you can't even leave anyway because you need a fucking car.
Yeah, and it's a fucking racist state. I'm so sick of these fucking liberals pretending that this racism ended in '65 or it ended when Biden won or whatever. It's ridiculous. Get real about America. Stop thinking this is like a Hollywood movie. I don't even watch like I don't even watch modern movies anymore, with few tiny exceptions. But yeah.
It's just California. It's just let's
I
be.
watch breakdowns of things more than I watch the actual thing because I like just having a pathological analysis of the thing so I can break
Mhm.
it down in its components and criticize it.
Yeah,
Um,
right. And I want to thank Dark Synovia because I do feel like there aren't enough leftists talking about some of these realities regarding the current topic and the subtopics connected to it, and not just necessarily about California alone. I mean, let's just all 50 states and the other places this country occupies, Hawaii, etc., Puerto Rico, and all that. Don't let we gotta combat this like liberal fascist propaganda for sure. And I think we've been doing that these last 2 hours and motivating people that there's some hope as well on top of
The thing is, none of us are special. Every person who's watching this stream right now can do the exact same thing we are doing. Like, do not think for a second that you can't do what we're doing. You can do it too. It doesn't take much work to use a mic and talk on for whatever amount of time you're able to do.
It's not easy to just speak. I mean, nervousness comes into it, but it's like it's more so that the action of it is not in any way imbuing any action. It's an inactive passive motion to produce content. The actuation of it doesn't do it doesn't do anything to change the matters of things. There's no active work to it in the sense of like actually engaging in ground-based struggle and building movements forward. The best processes for these sorts of things and advice for people who do want to make their own channels and content, because everyone, if you've got a voice to that you want to be heard, speak it out there. You're not always guaranteed to catch flight. But it's not about that. It's all about the two good things that these online things are really good for, and that's showing solidarity and bringing light to struggles that are going on, as we're doing now with the OTCA. But if you ignore the slight detractions, what we've been doing with the OTCA, also education and solidarity for motions of action and struggle, and enlightening people on Wagwan and what needs to be done, talking about the actuation of general strike motions, talking about solidarity with Palestine within active motions, not just the solidarity streams I do alone. Like I fucking need to do more of a job in this regard myself, because I've been failing, and that's bringing light to protests regarding the struggles of Palestine. But what's even greater than being the person on YouTube to bring light to it is actually being involved with these protests. When I get my health back in order, because I've been in a bit of a crisis for the NHS for the past couple of years, I want to be getting involved in protests and motions of action, and getting involved with organizations to actuate towards this, not just drop into the deep end, but active engagement and actuating yourself within these struggles. And if you get involved in these protests and you've already built a channel centered around those two main motions, solidarity and education, you can film these protests, bring them onto your channel, and then build wider viewing bases. Everything starts small. The strength of one will always seem feeble in the motions of struggle, but in unity, in union, we stand strong. So it's gonna start small, and it's gonna start in a very scary manner. But while things are never gonna get less scary in a sense, if anything, they get more scary over time. The process of actuating yourself will be one that takes a motion of building oneself up towards actuating yourself to active struggle, engaging in organizations, and fucking organizing actual protest measures and programs for aid of the people. It's local. A national communist group, I don't mean like one that's nationalist, I mean a nationwide communist organization, cannot exist until the local orgs have been created and then organized together. Don't fuck around with what national org can I get into in America. Think on the local level. When you get into local organizing and get that down, then you can get into organizing with other organizations around the country and build towards making an actual organ that is nationwide, and is, as that process has gone forward, we're talking years of fucking work here.
Right.
It creates a great ground basis then for also engaging on the international front. It's that, when we're organized and able to actually protect our own impoverished and our own, minority groups through organization, we can then be like actually doing work that is able to help protect countries around the world during imperialist activities, like doing mass anti war protests and general strikes to try and stifle capitalism in the first world and trip it over its own dick.
Yeah.
It's our duty as
Oh,
communists
I want to break this.
to sabotage the imperial core.
Yeah, I
That's
want
what
to.
our duty is, by any means necessary. And if we don't do that, then what the fuck are we doing?
Right. I was gonna break this news to everybody. In Orange County, this is California, of course. Declare the health emergency as a surge in cases of respiratory syncytial virus. I mispronounced it, but I put it in. I messaged you too, and then I also put in the comment.
Jesus Christ.
And among children, and they're filling up the hospital as it is today. I guess I don't recognize this disease well, but it seems pretty.
It's not surprising. I mean, Orange County doesn't even take COVID seriously anymore. Barely
Right.
anyone is wearing masks these days.
Right. I know, and it's I really hope this doesn't get worse, but
I feel like
this is
every time I go out in public, people are staring at me when I wear a mask.
You're not
right.
on about like when they're saying like among children as well. The fucking video they're showing isn't of like a 7-year-old. It looks like a 2 or 3-year-old with a mother holding them. Uh,
I know it's fucked
like
up.
shit. But guys, business is as usual. So COVID must be over, right?
Yeah.
A
Fucking
lot of
Christ.
people don't even have healthcare in this fucking state. I don't even have it unless
I
if you want to go to Tijuana. That's it.
My healthcare is shit. It's like I have like I
Yeah.
have like Cal Optima. That's what I have. It's like, yeah, that's fucking totally not shit.
I
I
have
don't know. I don't know where the other box is, but this is my. I have a box of medical gloves and a box of masks. I don't use them all the time because I'm forgetfully irresponsible. Smack me when you see me for it, but I got the goods, boss. What's it? The fucking mom just come and she dropped me a load of fucking masks over, like, mainly because I've always nagged at her about a lack of mask and shit like that, and put it on her where I'm like, yo, it don't matter what you fucking think. I got an autoimmune condition. You can't just be so lax about it, especially when she was in work. It's like, yeah, you're going to work in a place where virus spreads super easy, and you're gonna tell me actively not only you're not wearing a mask in those environments, but you weren't wearing a mask around me. I got really, really antsy about it.
Yeah, there's another report also saying that this is in Canada as well,
Oh
that
shit.
there's a high volume of young patients in the coming days.
I actually think we should talk about that in a separate stream, because if I have to be honest with you, we could talk. This could be going on for 3 hours talking about this subject alone.
Right. I know.
And
It's
it's getting
breaking
late.
just now. I understand.
Fucking Christ. Anyway, and
America, fuck yeah.
America fucked. Fuck yeah.
In Canada.
And
Any-
fucking
anyway,
America car.
the last thing I want to say though before I end the stream is I am 100% behind the workers going on strike. Yes,
Same here.
it will be inconvenient for me, of course. I'll have to carpool to get to work and get home. Yes, but no matter what the circumstances, I always support the workers. Workers' rights to me are a fundamental part of my values, and my convenience that should not matter in the slightest, because we're all in this together. A minor inconvenience, or whatever you want to, or inconvenience in general, is if you're not willing to show your support when things get inconvenient for you, then you don't really support workers' rights. You don't. And I support workers' rights. It's one of the reasons why I'm on thin ice with my fucking job, because I make it well known that I support the workers' rights on every issue. It doesn't matter what it is, because I don't care about the fucking customer. I don't give a fuck about them. I care about the worker, because the worker are the ones that they're actually doing all of it. Like the bus drivers, they work long fucking tedious hours and they barely get paid fucking for it. They don't get paid enough, and they have to deal with a bunch of asshole fucking people who get on the bus, and they have to deal with fucking asshole fucking people who fucking honk when they're too slow or get impatient because they're not going fast enough. It's like they can't win.
Bro, we gotta just drive everywhere super fast because capitalism likes to do things the quick. It's like a lot of first world workers don't do the math. I'm more so middle class workers in this regard is where I'm getting at though. But a lot of the first world, where a lot of people will be like, they will rush around as if that's the norm, as that's the normal thing to do. But you rush around, you work your ass off, hours out. Especially middle class people fucking love to just work as many hours as they can. They get prideful over it. But you try and suggest to a lot of these people that, like, you are aware that you work like 2-3 hours, pay people a decent fucking amount, and everyone could easily have a job over their head. Yet, what the fuck are they manufacturing here that is solely manufactured here? What we manufacture in the first world is assembled. You know, like Swiss watches. They only have to have like 1 or 2 custom parts built in fucking Switzerland that are a part of the core function of the mechanism, and it's classified as made in Switzerland, not assembled in made in Switzerland. But most of the parts are actually made. This is for Rolex. Most of the parts are actually made in China, like fully manufactured and ready for assembly. We can't, you know, to push this idea of like, you know, this rush around overwork, which the bus system and the public transport system in general is overstressed the fuck out of. I'm sure everyone's heard problems about New York and London subway, or the underground over here, but same difference. Being disastrously busy, overcramped, horribly maintained equipment, and it's because of this rush, 9 to 5 mentality. Or in the case of fucking my old man, 7 to 5. Start early, finish late. But the fucking what's it? Well, he doesn't work as many hours these days. Fucking, I think it's like 8 till 4 now. But when I was a kid, it was 7 till fucking 4-5 on the weekdays, and on the weekends, half days for Saturday and Sunday. But he worked every single day of the fucking week. But what I'm getting at is that you got this rush. It's typically said at these very, very specific times that you have high flux rush hour. London rush hours are easily 3 hours long. Easily go off into the night, like. But we don't need it. It doesn't need to be like that. Capitalism needs it that way. We don't. We don't need a consumerist system. We don't need a system where everyone's rushing around like headless chicken when we're producing more than we would need for, like, if population was to go on a gradual scale from where it's gone now, and we were to reflect the past century of population growth, the amount of resources we're using now, we still wouldn't be using in fucking 2-3 decades time to suffice the population of the world we have. We'll be using it in 50 years' time to suffice the population of the world we have. People really don't consider how much we are using. Now, when you put it on a general scale, it's on average half of what we produce. But there's a problem with that. Certain industries are more overproductive than others. Food, one of the most important industries, is one of the most, if not the most, overproduced. We throw away enough food to feed this world several times over every year, and the number's going up. It was 3 times over in 2012. Do the math if you want to, but it's going to have gotten worse since then. And we got all this crisis. Everyone's rushing to have to produce this, produce that. We're going on about now a massive food shortage and food infrastructure crisis because of the war in Ukraine, etc. The capitalist system and its reliances have created these problems. We do not have a shortage of resources. We have a shortage of the will to distribute them, because distributing them in any fair sense would get in the way of the bottom line. Profit line must go up.
Yeah, and what and yeah, it doesn't matter if they endanger the human species in like 3 or 4 decades down the line. That is how irrational this system truly is.
We've got 3 or 4 decades, like it's more like a decade at best.
It's like we're getting to the point where it's socialism or extinction. That's not even an exaggeration at this point.
Yeah, every Marxist-Leninist is a eco-Marxist by de facto. If you don't accept that we have a climate crisis, you're not a Marxist. You're being a fascist. Capitalism has to be dismantled.
Engels very specifically said that if Marxists are to resist and not respect nature, they will not succeed in going forward in the developments of the new societies in which we create. The socialist society and the communist society must respect and understand nature. Nature is ever changing, ever moving, always needs to be understood further. We ourselves are intrinsically tied to it. If you were to put it into archetypical sense, nature is like the mother of all things living. It's the embodiment of life. Okay, that being the case, then it should be paramount to us that we respect, love, and understand nature as much as we can, and nature will ever be moving forward as we'll be moving forward. So there'll never be a point where we totally, completely, 100% know all of nature, because there's always more to know. We're never going to know everything. Not only is like the idea of frolicking around about absolute truths kind of ridiculous when we live in a relative reality, in the sense that time and space are moving. Truth that we understand is relative to our understanding of the motions of time and space. Now, we do know some absolute truths. They're definitely out there. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is our absolution is not there. We don't have an absolute even on the truths we know, because our ability to ascertain towards even absolute truths is relative on our knowledge and experience of how in which these things operate and function. That's a fact. So science is always going to have a relative purview. What is science? Science is the accumulative data of what we have analyzed through our philosophical lenses. We use philosophy, and science is the confines of where philosophy reaches us. You have the tools of science, of which are used for analytical equipment, but science itself is what we understand of reality on the relative basis we can understand it. I mean, the point I'm making, reality is relative. It's not something that we can just go, aha, absolution on it, because that time that you have just pointed to is now moved in pointiation. Like, there's always a relative matter, even to something you could tell me is an absolute truth. Like, I've heard someone try and say mathematics is 1, so like 2 + 2 is definitely always 4. That's an absolute truth. And it's like, okay, but within a concept, you're not driving a material thought by just saying 2 + 2 is 4. Okay, so if 2 plus 2 of a thing, a physical object, is 4, there's still a relative pointiation to whatever physical object you are using to represent that absolute arithmetic. Because the mathematic is something that we have applied to the existence of matter and material for us to logically understand it and confine ourselves around it. So in any processee, when you're materially applying a concept that you believe to have absolution and its truthfulness, there is a relativity to how you apply that concept because of the motion of truth. All things are in motion. So trying to put an absolute, which is an absolute would be opposed to the motion of things. That would be to suggest that you have found an unmoving object in a sea of constant motion. That is a contradiction.
That is true. Do you have anything to add, Gangaros?
Yeah, I just woke up. Sorry about that. I was supposed to come on at 1, and then I just kind of said, all right, I'm going to rest my eyes for 5 minutes. 2 hours later.
He's smoking a fat dude skin. Kangaroos doesn't smoke, by the way, everyone, just in case you don't know. The joke wouldn't land with people that don't know.
So, do you have anything to add to the OCTA? What's a public transport and union busting discussion? Since you just got here, if you have anything you would like to talk about from your experience with public transportation.
I live out in the suburbs, so unfortunately, public transportation, I mean, it exists here, but it's not like the be-all way to get around here. It's almost
there.
Exclusive. It's there, but it's like one of those, like, add-on things. It's like
DLC.
Let me guess.
I've got the rural battle pack.
Let me guess. Only one.
Every
bus.
time he waits for the bus, he has to spin a battle crate, and every time he's just one off from actually getting a bus ticket. Instead, he has to go walk.
Let me guess. Only one bus.
One bus every 45 minutes, because that's the usual for here in rural areas.
Probably like one every 3 hours, I bet.
Yeah, it's something like that.
That was the old Burton bus. We had a bus that went straight to Burton, and it didn't take 3 hours to get to Burton on the bus, but you had to wait 3 hours for the bus because they only sent one bus. So that one bus would have to drive all the way to Burton and all the way back before you could get it again. It's like, Jesus Christ. Eventually they just stopped the service, and people I knew who went to college in Burton got completely shafted. Now, it's only 15 minutes on the train, but like, the train is not as cheap as the buses. You just get a day saver or a monthly pass, and you're sour and you're sweet, and that ticket helps you with doing your local shit. If you've got to fucking fork out for the train, and you're going to want to get the bus anyway if you don't live near the town centre to speed yourself up, that's just double duty then. We have, I think on average, we have like the highest public transport prices in Western Europe.
Yeah.
How much is it, if you don't mind me asking?
Fucking, what's it? I live in a town with local buses, and it's typically around... It's $270 for a single into town. That's for about a 2.5. That's about 3 mile journey.
Fucking Christ! That's like fucking Christ. Hold on, 270. 270 pound? You mean in pounds?
Yeah.
Oh.
It's for £4 summit you can get I think it's $460 for a day saver, or $450.
That's more than it costs to get around Orange County for one way. What the fuck?
Yeah, so like and to get to, if I was to go to Birmingham through single tickets, it cost me $270 into town, and then it cost me another £3 It's 360, but it may have gone up. May have gone to the scary £4, but it is 360 last time I got to Birmingham on the single. But
that's like almost $10 to get
Yeah.
around.
I'm sorry.
and that's only traveling about 15, 20 miles. Well, the bus journey itself travels more than 20 miles because it's got to go around. But Birmingham is only fucking 20 miles away from me. And what's it? But it's about £6.50 or something like that for the Midlands day saver. But you can only catch Arriva buses. You can't catch all the other fucking companies. So you got to you could hop around the Midlands for a £6 day saver. But yeah, good luck. Only useful really for going to and from Birmingham. Trains are a nightmare. But just to get to Birmingham on the train for a local return, that's £8. Plus the £2.70 or the £4, depending on whether you got a day saver with the bus or not, for the bus into town. So it costs a fortune to travel around here.
So we actually do have a train system around here, but you know something that's interesting about our train system is that it goes in like the area I live, the very populated area. It's like a line basically. And it goes from Downingtown. That's one of the stops of the train, and then you got Thorndale, and I live between those two areas, and but then you got Coatesville, which is right next to it, and the train system mysteriously seems to stop right around Thorndale, and Coatesville, which is the predominantly black area. The train system doesn't exist for them there. So they have to drive all the way to Thorndale in order to get the train system to Philadelphia. That's interesting, isn't it?
And then if you haven't found a crafty way to park your car for free, you've got to pay for a day parking ticket at the train station because train stations don't have free parking.
Beautiful.
Parking meters here are extortion as well. Yeesh. But it's no, what's it? Yeah, you gotta remember, the UK is the size of the small states in America. A lot of people in Wales have to travel into South England and sometimes London to work, and there's a train line that goes from Wales into South England. It costs the same price as it did when the fare was specifically designed to exclude the lower class. £50, £50 tickets, and it's mind you, back when that fare was devised, I think it was well over fucking 70, 80 years ago. £50 was already worth a lot more money back then, but fucking pounds to catch the train for fucking probably less than 150 miles. That's ridiculous. Cost me fucking it cost me fucking, it must have been less than 40 or 30 pound to travel around 150, 200 miles to go on holiday to a holiday spot in Skegness. But this is people going to work, paying more than most people would pay doing the local runs to work in a car. Well, before the fuel crisis, at least. Because this problem was 2 years ago when it was being brought up about the really extortionate rate of the Welsh line of the train system, the Comrec line.
Yeah, it's basically like those feudal taxes of back at when feudalism was still a thing, where you would have to pay taxes to certain lords when you entered their lands. It's so.
Well, this is actually a tie over from the old train system, the first, second, third class system.
Yeah, I wonder how much of their wages they spend just getting to work and back alone. That'd be interesting to look into.
I mean, the fact that they're still able to keep going to work means they probably are at least getting paid enough that they're covering themselves. Because I imagine the people that can't afford it have already lost their jobs.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people who probably are only just barely able to make ends meet. But the fact there are a lot of people who have to travel so many hundreds of miles in this country to go fucking work is a bit mental. Like we're a very densely populated country. Like wide spaces with massively densely populated regions. It's quite hard to find yourself in an area where you're not at least somewhat close to local infrastructure. So it's all a pointative issue of how Wales is used by the rest of the union, similarly to the use of the Scottish Lowlanders, the remaining Irish occupied regions, and even to a lesser degree the north of England. These places are stripped of a lot of their labor power since the end of the mass industrial period in the First World, where they evacuated it all into the Third World for production. So like these regions that are incredibly poor now and have lost a lot of their labor power and ability to actually take strike action. Most of these people who come from these old jobs fell into the lumpen and their families have never gotten back out of it. It puts them into a very despairing position where system can very easily just go stick all the middle class main jobs out there, not even bother making a decent, healthy amount of work there, just crap out warehouse work that will never provide enough jobs for everyone. And then it's fine for them that they can go for that extraction run. But yeah, no, the transport system here is it's been gutted to death since Labour privatized the bus and train system in 2004. Not the Conservatives, Labour.
Yep. Thank you, Tony Blair.
It's almost as if in every instance of privatization, most of it's done by liberals.
Yeah, Bill Clinton, Tony Blair. These are some interesting figures, to say the least.
It's funny because Tony Blair actually called King Charles III, back when he was a prince, that he is both New Labour and not New Labour, and the reasons for why he's not New Labour was centered around his conservativeness, while the reasons why he was for his prominent liberal attitude and pro-democratic mind. He's a monarch, but the reasons I see in this regard, if you really translate it, is the difference is King Charles is more of an outright fascist than Tony Blair. Tony Blair's a bit of a dumbass, not gonna lie. He's not an idiot, but he's a bit ass up. He's ass backwards. That's the way I'm trying to really go with this. Tony Blair's a bit wrong-ended. His head's so far up his ass, he can see the sun shining through his translucent skin, fucking blinding him. Fucking. I said all skin's translucent. I don't know why I had to specify what I was trying to get at. You can see the sun through his fucking skin. I don't know whether that's entirely possible, but his head's up his ass regardless. Maybe it's in his gullet and he's getting melted by his stomach acid. Take it as you want it. He's got brown hair for a reason. It's because his head's been up his ass. He dyes it. That's why his hair goes grey every now and then. The way Tony Blair dyes his hair is he shits on himself while watching Trump get pissed on by Russians.
You know what's funny? I said the stream was about to end almost at 40 minutes ago.
And then I
it's not my fault.
I'm not gonna lie, if Gangaros didn't show up, I would have ended it already. But I didn't want to end it as soon as he showed up because he never had a chance to really say much.
No, we gotta isolate Gangaros. As soon as he joins, right now we're over.
He did wake up, and I don't want to waste his time. So at least I want to give him at least 30 minutes to an hour at the least.
To be fair, I am off work, so you ain't wasting anybody's time today.
I still can't. But yeah, it's like
But no, what my father summed it up best with like striking. He basically, sorry to cut you off, but he summed it up best. Like, you cross the strike line back in the day, you get the shit beat out of you, and that's pretty much the way it should go.
I agree.
Don't be no black leg mining, man. Don't not go cross that picket line into work against the workers' struggle. Like there's to be solidarity in this action. You know, like we're supposed to be against the fucking bosses. Don't be that wrong brother who helps the fucking boss lynch your other brothers and sisters to the cross. We stand against our class traitors, and we stand against the upper classes. So, strike action is one that's strict and organized, and was the predominant way people like to do things. People should go watch the videos of the 70s and 80s mining strikes in the UK. You'll see the police brutality those people met and how much they kept standing strong and together. The reason why they exported the mines, it's not just because it got cheaper. It's because the workers also got too much of a problem in their regards to want better rights. If they could keep it just as cheap here as they could keep it abroad, they'd do both because it's even more profitable. Because people in the first world started to kick off, it's export it. This is causing too many contradictions and could risk capitalism. Just go for the cheaper produce because it's cheaper anyway.
Well, I do expect, like I said earlier, many times throughout the stream, strikes are going to be a common occurrence. Considering the contradictions are impossible to ignore now, thanks to the war in Ukraine. Like this, of course, what happened in my county where I live at, in Orange County, California. This was a long time coming. There was talks of a potential strike for like 4 years. Almost 5 years, actually, when I think about it. So this was coming. This was going to come regardless. I just think the war in Ukraine accelerated it because of how expensive gas has been getting and how hard these bus drivers have been working. It's like COVID, especially. They've been fucking working them to the bone.
It's like the double entendre. They got like one yet COVID, which fucked over. Like, why nobody has ever talked about the working class getting fucked over with COVID is beyond fucking me. Like, Jesus Christ, you got people working with like mask on all day, and then you got people who just lose their jobs just outright when it first starts.
Damaged lungs.
Thrown into the lumping, and you got long
COVID. Damaged lungs is what he's saying. Like, because the mask on thing is an important priority because, I mean, like, a big problem with a lot of, like, fucking really bougie institutions is they don't give a shit if people want to wear masks or not, so they don't enforce their workforce to wear them. 90% of places I go, no one's wearing masks, which is even worse. We're making big old spreadaroonie of the coronavirus, and it's the people who are suffering the most who end up being the ones who take heat on that and take hit on that. Get belted in. I mean, a lot of things that wasn't respected was our logistics fucking workers. Like, all these first world people wouldn't have had shit to eat, drink, or do anything with if it wasn't for delivery drivers during the fucking pandemic.
Yep. Yeah, Bennett. And I don't know what's gonna happen to the people who do the Uber Eats. I don't know how anybody even affords to use that. I never have in a long time.
Never do it.
Right.
For me, if I want to get something to eat, I'll just go physically to the place.
The whole like gig economy thing is gonna really take a hit if it isn't already. I mean, it is.
The gig economy works and the gig economy was taking a hit from its start. None of these things actually make profit.
Right. Yeah.
Every year Uber has lost money.
Yeah,
more money than they did the year before. I mean,
Yeah, I heard that. I heard that Jeff Bezos doesn't treat his, I guess, housekeepers right, and I don't know. I
Of
mean,
course he
Fucking
doesn't.
imagine having housekeepers. That's cringe.
I
Oh
know.
my.
It's I
Apparently
know.
they had to like jump through a window or some shit because it's dangerous or what the fuck. I don't know. Like I don't know what the fuck his houses
Fucking
have
man's probably
that.
got like electric fucking door or something and it's faulty.
I know I brought this up multiple times throughout the stream, but the casual fascism of a lot of the so-called proletariat, since like the pandemic is sickening.
Yeah, well, most of the
Yeah,
time they're getting those ideas from like the petty bourgeoisie who want to, it's so freaking complicated because they want to open everything back up and with this very like Malthusian mindset of just work them
lines
all
up. Yeah,
line go
line.
up even during the
Yeah,
pandemic.
Well,
It's
and
basically like
it's
the
still a
PragerU
pandemic.
tweet, like the PragerU tweet about climate change, and it's like, why is it every single time somebody mentions climate change and the solution, it's always abolish capitalism?
Shit.
Yes, I
I
wonder.
wonder. I wonder if
Yeah,
anti-capitalism is a reason for existing, and climate change is just another problem to add to the big tally list of things that require this system to go before we can fix them.
interesting
Trademark.
how they occasionally tell the truth. They know capitalism is the problem.
Well, I mean, they don't see it as a problem. They in their position, they know capitalism is the direction they want to go, and the classes of the lower sector of a fucking mediation against it. They're befounded because middle class people, the people who are like, you've had it all, you have the prosperity. That's their mentality. They're like, we give you all this prosperous society, and this is how you repay us. That's the bourgeoisie losing their shit because there's a quote unquote ungrateful mass of that's their problem. They expect lower class people to not like it. They see us all as desert denizens of the forest. They're pissy because people who should be entailed in their white supremacy cultured fucking uh big booty fascist empire
yeah. Oh,
is not
and
being loved and cherished by the middle
yeah,
class.
right. Oh, and one other thing I want to break is that recently, this is like a climate crisis topic that is going to affect us. Um, so not just in Alaska, but even like parts of near England, there's a lot of crab deaths, and they're basically there's not enough crabs. They're not going to be able to sell anymore. But the problem is that it looks
I
like a
can't
lot of
afford
them are
crab
dead.
anyway.
I know, but you know, it just shows you like the damage capitalism does. It's killing crabs, and now England is investigating it. Um,
Trustworthy
yeah,
investigators.
Mhm.
They'll
Well,
go to a fucking Red Lobster, order crab. That'll be the English investigation.
yeah,
of course, some dumbass will think the solution to save our to save part of our food resources is like cloning or something.
Yeah, we need more cows to fart out even more methane, guys. That'll definitely solve the problem.
It's like that. It's like treating fucking science like it's some sort of fucking magic.
To think you could produce your way out of overproduction is some alchemical thinking. It's like, no. Uh,
You can't make
we
something out
have
of
to tell people that alchemy was disproven like 400 years ago. It's
you
dead
can't make
shit.
you can't
You
make something
can't
out of
shit
nothing.
gold.
Even though yo, like you can't create something out of nothing. Honestly, it's like what?
Fucking
It's like you can't just clap your hands like you're some sort of fucking alchemist from the the Full Alchemist anime and fucking boom, create
I
some.
was about to say,
fucking
like, if you
weird
collect enough manga, your weeb strength will increase
Yeah,
to a point where you can, like, false roll, Kamakami, what's the Naruto one?
No, Naruto
Fucking,
for Senkan and
Shadow
Goku is
clones.
Kamehameha.
yeah, so that's what I'm saying. The false roll, Kamakami Rashenka, there you go. Copyright, trademark, you cannot use that. That is my invention.
But seriously, in Fullmetal Alchemist, I'm just bringing this up. What I'm talking about in Fullmetal Alchemist, there is a specific rules that you cannot create something out of nothing. Equivalent exchange. The reason why this is relevant is you even if you create, you were to say you were to clone some food, with these as an example, you'd have to. It has to come from a source. You can't create it out of. You can't create it out of nothing.
Yeah, well, cloning requires a mother. I mean, there's an idea that you could make like biogel shit, provide the necessary proteins but they were talking like science that's way too expensive and beyond belief. Like, it's just like you still have to create that organic matter and then have it programmable to develop. It's just beyond belief. The best creations of organic material are already existing organisms of the specific species. Fucking. But alchemy itself believes in needing a thing to change it into a thing. It's just what alchemy believes is that I can turn wood into gold if I try hard enough and mix it with enough certain chemicals. That's what alchemy believes in. Like,
Well,
it's crazy pseudo stuff, and that's what I mean. They think they can produce their way into something better. That if you produce so much hard enough in this direction, you'll hit that gold. It's alchemistic in spirit with the way they're trying to organize capital. They think bourgeoisie are regressing a lot. A lot of religious sentiment is driving the mentality of the Anglosphere, for example.
Yeah.
A lot of English and American bourgeoisie believe in Gehenna. That's their mindset. So they see global warming as God's will.
Yeah. And I just posted today that there's like 25 churches or whatever caught illegally participating in political campaigns, and it's like we don't tax churches and American stuff, and like so like the secularism is being destroyed here.
It never existed. Let's be real.
Yeah,
America's always been
Yeah.
a Christian country. I mean, the guys literally declared war on the TPRK on a Sunday so that it could be pushed as, well, we're a Christian country. We wouldn't start a war. Why, America? I thought you weren't supposed to be a Christian country. I thought you were supposed to be a second country. What's going on?
I know the secularism doesn't really exist. I know that.
honestly, the only founding father that was worth a shit was Thomas Paine, and he wasn't really a founding father.
I mean, none of them were really. All a
Yeah.
bunch of fucking English, Dutch, and French fucking bourgeois dick shits.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fucking king. He was going to call himself a king at one point when they were fucking thinking about making him a king. Sorry. President George Washington. He fucking was one of the most praised and valid members of the general corps, the officer corps of the British Empire at the time. Like, genuinely, and the British Empire kept constantly appeasing towards him and trying to meet the demands that they were setting, and even at one point agreed to reset the tax rate so long as the Americans stopped doing slavery in 1773. I don't need to tell you how the Americans responded.
There's a good book that actually talks about this entire subject. Read 1776 by Gerald Home. He gives
Yeah.
detail
and the counter revolution of 1776.
Well, that I was referring to. Like,
yeah, you just said 1776, so I got a bit confused.
Just the book as a whole mostly talks about the stuff that led to the counter revolution of 1776. Because just talking about 1776 by itself, at least the counter revolution, is not enough. to understand why America is the way it is. You have to go back the time before that. That's
Not
why,
just that as well, like the whole idea that like America was just bourgeois progress and Britain was just feudal regression, which is the American story, isn't the case.
well, it's
Both countries were seeking bourgeois development, and Britain was actually just starting its industrial revolution. And it was actually in response to the Tea Party, the British constantly used liberal language and tried to appease towards America, saying we need to come together as, make there be. This is a statement they made: was like, make there be no division between us on decency, other than whom can create the most liberal and prosperous society of fraternity. That was their message to the Americans. It doesn't sound like the British are telling the Americans to be, feudal. Actually, they were trying to give them a hell of a lot of autonomy as well. The Americans didn't leave because weren't trying to leave because they wanted more autonomy in the British Empire. They wanted to be the British Empire.
Honestly, I'd argue that, of course, it's been a while since I've read the book. Gerald Home actually did make an argument that America was a fascist state from the very beginning in his book, the Counter-Revolution of 1776. And if you look at all the evidence in that book and everything after 1776, I think his arguments are pretty valid. That it explains why America's always had a fascistic culture, and why it's always been fascistic in general. Like, I'm not going to say America was the very first fascist country, because fascism did not exist as we know it today in 1776. But the evidence is pretty strong when you look at the actions of many of the presidents at that time and the bourgeoisie at that time.
It was the same with Cromwell's government and Charles II's monarchy afterwards. Both of those were distinctly proto-fascist. If anything, a lot of the fascism of the English Revolution was very inspirational for the American one. And, your history, you'll know some of those failed English revolutionaries went and moved over to America after the English Revolution failed.
Right, yeah.
Well, that's
and
true.
that's not even getting into like the whole history of like these like proto-fascist movements like the KKK, and then the infamous red shirts who would later be an inspiration for the infamous black shirts. So they took it from the Italians. They took it from Garibaldi. Garibaldi was a good guy, but these guys, not so much. They were white supremacists. And then the Italians took it back to form the black shirt. So it's kind of like from the Italians to the Americans, back to the Italians.
Well, this is the
why shirts later on, because the Americans had to go full like homoerotic. I just expect them dressed in like like the shiny shirts that you expected for like camp dress wear in like the 60s and the 70s that would be distinctly seen as like stereotypically like homosexual stuff. I'm not trying to say it actually is, just for any of my fucking comrades out there. I didn't fucking buy myself. No. But what I'm getting at is that like the silver shirts sounds kind of funny. Sounds like a jazz group.
Well, this is one of the reasons why people like Gerald Home is hated by reactionaries, because this guy, because he's one of the few historians, who actually talks about colonialism, imperialism, fascism, from the lens of a black man.
Right. I mean, look,
African. If we want to be,
Bruh, these people can't even speak about it through the lens of a black man because they're not even willing to listen to the experiences of a black man.
Right.
I mean, what can you speak to if you're not even willing to hear the call?
To listen to them, if it's
I know, but that's what I mean. It's like the problem is that they can't get past that stage. Their heads are so stuck in the mud. They think that like They do the thing, the African American entitlement, where they see the black people they need to be listening to the most, those who are in extreme poverty. They see them through that racist lens of an African. They instantly perspectivize them as lumpen criminal scum, rebel scum. But and then obviously those in the middle class, they see them as Americans, and they try and there's this massive tendency of white people, even those who believe they're anti-racist, to push white archetypes and behaviors onto black middle class people, whether they're friends with them or not, and expect them to act and behave within those parameters of whiteness and see it as iffy if they do not fit into it.
And the sad part is I've seen it happen before. I mean, I have talked to a significant number of new African peoples here in America, and I have seen them say verbatim some stuff that, you know, these racist conservative people say all the time, like the immigrants, they're the problem. I had one guy basically tell me, like, straight up an NRA talking point about, like, guns. It's like, well, the gun isn't the issue, it's the NRA slogan that's the issue there. But yeah, I've seen it fully in action here.
Yeah, it's annoying that like the gun rights argument is like either everyone's all mentally ill or it's the NRA. It's like, no.
Honestly, using
also, like, rather than calling it the Socialist NRA when it's like the Socialist National Rifle Association, why not call it the the SPRA, the Socialist People's Rifles Association? Why? Just the term national rubs me wrong. You know, it'd be like,
honestly, it's ableistic when you basically always when that sort of stuff happens, you always have to bring up they're mentally ill.
Well, that's what the NRA does to defend itself, and then the libs respond with, "Well, it's the NRA." You are right, though. It is ableistic. Sorry.
Well, it is. It's like there's people who have mental illness that don't fucking go around shooting up a school or shooting up a fucking shopping center or shoot up a mall. It's like, no.
I'm on a limb to argue that most shootings happen not because of mental illness. I mean, people might be mentally ill. I'm not going to say most shootings don't happen with someone who's mentally ill, because I mean, mental illness is it's a fucking it's a very available commodity right now. I'll tell you that. But the what's it? The fucking the mental health itself to cause it. That's a drastic statement to take. I mean, at the end of the day, it's likely people will have mental conditions at times of these positions because alienation drives depression, drives a lot of these, you know, fucking nasty mental health issues to deal with. So that does exist there, but they are products of their class conscious position, of where they philosophically and ideologically plant themselves and look at and see the world from, indicatively decide where they place themselves and how they actuate their positions. Experiences in life enforce and drive those. Mental health itself doesn't make you turn to a political side, and you know the same contradictions that can cause someone to go mentally ill could happen to two people, exact same contradictions, and one could be a communist, one could be a fascist, completely distinctly apart from each other. You could have gone through a lot of the similar childhood upbringings, like severe abuse like I have and shit like that. Go through severe abuse, severe alienation, mass untreatment. I was a fucking Nazi at one point in my youth. Does end up finding you that way. I know people who have been communists since they started getting political. It was one of the first things they started getting into because liberalism wasn't interesting, and unlike me, they were smart enough to know fascism is pretty fucking bad and had a better moral compass than I did when I was a youth. They go for communists, but they had all the same experiences of me growing up, and not like they had an abusive upbringing but were upper class than me. I mean, like, they were lower class like me. They had a harsh upbringing like me, and they fucking came out way better than I did because they, you know, different other experiences in their life drove them down different roads and into different places. But the fact of the matter is that if the same experiences if someone can have the same experiences of trauma in life but then certain other actuative experiences can drive them in the right direction towards the left wing, the communist philosophy. I hate that, like, the left is in the right direction as incorrect, and then the right is in the wrong direction. It gets confusing. Fucking right, left, up, down, straight forward. But yeah, they went left wing. If that's the case, then there has to be a way to learn to actuate onto people's experiences whom have gone the wrong direction to pull them away from it. It's good to smack fascists, but if you ever get the chance to convince someone away from it, give it a shot. Just don't waste all your time doing it. Remember that fascism pushes an ideology that wants us dead.
Yeah.
You may succeed. Not everyone is a fucking mega fascist like fucking Evola.
Or Caleb
super
Poppin.
fascist. Yeah, he literally said in court that the reason he's not a fascist is because of blah blah blah. I'm a super fascist, so therefore they're not the same thing. And the court acquitted him.
21st century techno fash.
Wait, a super fascist? What is he? A fascist equivalent of a Super Saiyan?
You see,
Yeah.
he can't be of the party he was in because he's a super fascist, and that was a fascist party. Checkmate.
Mate,
I'd say liberals, but the liberals weren't in power at that time. Checkmate. Social fascists.
Yeah.
Or Britain, where it's just fascism because monarchy trademark.
And Evola,
And America didn't really have much of a social fascism either.
yeah.
and Evola criticized Ray, I guess, in his idea, regular fascism for being too populist and nationalist because he wants like a pagan pan imperium. And he says class is artificial and there's going to be a caste system within that neo-Roman.
I don't want classes, wants a caste system.
Yeah.
What does he think that means? Classes aren't fucking official.
Jesus.
I'll have you know, the government did not put the existence of those classes into law, so checkmate Marxists.
I can't make that up. I'm serious.
Oh, it's like, oh no.
I mean, fucking Christ! This is not even the same stream anymore.
What do you expect?
I'm high. That's why.
Well, the longer a stream like this goes for, the further it strays from the original topic. Forget it. I'm not even going to ask anyone to go back to it because we've already discussed everything we could about what we talked about before.
He's not taking any risks.
Yeah.
It's like
Just give us like a final comment and put like a minute timer on it.
I doubt that's gonna do us any good. We tried that earlier, and we're like almost an hour later. Say the stream's about to end.
Don't worry, guys. You got a lot of content to work while you're slaving out at the workplace. So
About to end.
Well, okay. Okay. Well, everyone says one last thing. Doesn't matter what it is. Don't care. Go.
Free Haiti, free Hawaii.
fucking me and Gengar are some off waiting.
Okay.
Go first, please.
Yes. Yeah, at the end of the day, fucking America needs to be fucking destroyed. And a new society needs to be rebuilt upon it. Society we have right now is fucking disgusting. And I don't know how the hell you look at it and say, this can be reformed. It's fucking mental and fuck this country, fuck imperialism, and I'm gonna enjoy my day off.
Okay. You noob?
Yeah, I support the strikes with the buses, and climate crisis is important, and the pandemic is still ongoing. It hasn't ended, and I think we covered the rest of it today. So
All right. Well,
Deflation mode.
I support the strikes, but I guess I'll just do what I guess I'll just do this. Death to America, fuck Israel, long live Palestine, long live the RA, and fuck the King of England.
Yeah, what's it? So fucking general strike action is what's needed in the first world in the next couple of years. It needs to be organized rapido, as they say in Italy. I don't know any other
Immediate
Italian, so don't get your hopes up. But the actuative order as to what is to be done is all about communist understanding that if we are to mean anything to our international brothers and sisters of the proletariat, got to be organized on a local and national basis within our own. If we can aid our own people, then we can aid other people around the globe. If we ain't even got a ground basis of structure for the vulnerable people right now who need help, we can't do shit for anyone else. Gotta get organized.
Agree.
That's going to be the repetitive thing I'm going to be saying in every stream I'm on my own channel, every other channel. We need to be getting organized. Little drum roll for you.
I agree. We need to get organized, and as better read than dead.
The order somewhere, it just gets everything the wrong way order. It's cut me up so many times recently.